Good morning. It is the morning of day 7 of the State versus Hannah Gutierrez read. It is March 1st. I think the state should be wrapping their evidence today. I don't know what else the state needs to do. What the state has not yet proven is tampering with evidence, but I don't know how many witnesses they have for that. So what I think will happen this morning, and we'll see together, we're going to do the cross-examination of Sarah Zachery. I expect it to be a little fiery. She was the prop master. We know Hannah's lawyer is going to kind of push a lot of the responsibility onto her. Then I think we're going to get to Seth Kinney, and then maybe one other witness that said Hannah handed them some stuff. I can't imagine what else the state is going to bring for their witnesses. So I think we might get the state ending their case today and then getting into the defense case. If the attorneys play nicely and move along quickly, I think this case could wrap next week, which will be interesting to see. They are 7 days into trial, so that is like more than a full week into trial. So we're gonna go join court. Chat, it's great to see you. You know how much we love chat. So let us roll the intro. Let us get into court and let us see if the cross-examination of Sarah Zachery brings the fire. I imagine that it will, because really, as a defense attorney, that's your one job, and cross-examination is a joy for any attorney.
Hey there, I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not... Let's get into it.
And chat, oh, that's not helpful. There's supposed to be court there. Chat, just a note for all of you. I got a new Wi-Fi solution today. So everybody just proverbially cross your fingers that we can have court nonsense with no buffering. Like the fuckery without the buffering is what we're really looking for today. So let's start this cross-examination. And
Good morning, jurors.
I've got this at 1.25, so when they take the morning break, we're gonna zoom right past that morning break.
Seated.
That's my goal. So my goal is to roll straight through to lunch, or roll straight through court to lunch. We know there will be some objections. The state shouldn't protect Sarah Zachery too much. They really don't need to, so.
Good morning, Ms. Zachry.
Good morning.
Ms. Zachry, in this case, you agreed to cooperate with the state. Is that true?
Yes.
And you agreed to come in and testify against Ms. Gutierrez-Reed. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
did they give her an immunity deal? If they gave her an immunity deal and the state didn't bring it up on direct, it's setting her up for absolute failure. Because if they gave her an immunity deal, the state should have disclosed that, because otherwise it looks shady to a jury. And let me know if it looks shady to you.
as part of that, you entered into a cooperation agreement with the state.
They gave her an immunity deal and they didn't bring it up on direct. They gave her an immunity deal and they didn't bring it up on direct. They gave her an immunity deal and they didn't bring it up on direct. I hate that. It looks so bad for this witness and it's so fucking avoidable. Like, I will gain court up just a little bit. It's so avoidable to just bring it up. Hey, you agreed to cooperate with us on the case. Doesn't it feel shady to you? Chat, let me know in the chat if it looks shady to you, because why not bring it up? There's no excuse for this. And you leave the witness hanging out to dry. It's...
Right?
Yes.
And that cooperation agreement indicates that if you agree to testify and you have to provide truthful testimony, that you will not be prosecuted for any crime. Is that right?
Yes.
So,
why didn't the prosecutor bring it up?
You have a complete immunity from being prosecuted.
Is
correct?
it complete or transactional? Calls for legal
Yes.
conclusion.
Well,
Can you speak up, please?
Yes. Sorry, I'm a little closer.
it's okay. Is that better?
I hate that.
Okay. Is that your understanding of the document, that you have a complete, that you're not going to be prosecuted, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I hate that.
Now, you testified.
I don't necessarily hate that she won't be prosecuted based on everything she said. The rounds that came out of the long guns, I don't think were necessarily evidence. But I hate that the state didn't bring it up, and it makes this witness look like they did something wrong. An immunity deal's not wrong. An immunity deal can be completely fair. They left her out to dry to get skewered on this, and that's just bad lawyering, in my opinion.
Yesterday, that you...
I'm gonna make
had-
a poll for you guys
As far
real
as the
quick.
props roles, you were Hannah's boss in that role. Is that right?
I wouldn't say boss, I guess a supervisor. What I said goes with props.
And Hannah was a props assistant, correct?
Part-time,
Okay. And she was also a part-time armor?
full-time.
Your
The
understanding
state
she
can't
was
mistrial the
part-time
case.
props and full-time armor?
Armor was her main duty, yes.
Okay, but she was also doing props as well, correct?
When there was no firing of any guns, yes.
Well, didn't you ask her on several occasions, for example, to do things like rolling cowboy cigarettes?
That was one day.
Well, you asked her to prop up other characters at times, right?
Ian, good to see you in the chat.
The only props that other characters had were the guns.
They didn't have their belts,
Well, yeah, they had belts.
and they didn't have, for example, glasses or other items that they needed to have on them?
What type of glasses are you talking about?
Anything you'd have in a Western movie, hats, glasses, they didn't have other props?
Those are wardrobe.
Okay, what other props were there with regard to these actors besides firearms?
There were very miscellaneous things depending on the scene.
All right, Chad, I put up a
There
poll
was
for
day
your
where
opinion
we
on
were in
how
a
bad it
saloon,
looks
there
that
were
the
whiskey
state didn't
glasses,
mention her
there
immunity
were
deal.
rolled cigarettes. There were poker sets.
I think Seth
those
Kinney's
kind
the
of
next
things.
witness.
And those props had to be provided to those actors, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you also testified that you had some armor duties, correct?
correct,
And so you were in that role assisting Ms. Gutierrez Reed, right?
correct,
And as part of that, you loaded and unloaded guns on the set?
correct.
Now, you were trained, I think you said, by Seth Kinney on a prior film.
Yes,
How much training did you receive from Seth Kinney?
I had maybe 10 days to prep for that set, so within that amount of time, when I was
Based on this,
leaving,
I'm gonna
he
guess
would
Seth Kinney
show
also
me
has
how to
immunity.
Work with the guns and ammo.
That's my guess.
So did you feel proficient, very good in working with guns and ammo?
In what I was using, yes.
Were you, I
In
think you
what-
said in the past, and you can tell me
Very
if you disagree,
concise
that you were not
answer.
able to tell a dummy round from a live round?
I don't recall saying that.
In what I was
Now,
using is
yesterday
a
you
very
testified that
precise
you weren't
and limited
familiar with the
answer.
single action revolver. Is that right?
I didn't say, or are you talking about when I entered or started
Jane
class?
Doe,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
very hard
And
to
so,
do, and it's
as we sit here
very
today,
rare.
do you know the difference between a single action and a double action?
I saw this question from more than just Jane Doe in the chat. I see a lot of you asking, so I'm going to pause to answer it. Can immunity deals be withdrawn? Yes, it is very rarely done. It is not something that people like, prosecutors like to do, because you offer the immunity deal because you want the thing that they are providing. You as the prosecutor are providing immunity. Hey, I'm not going to prosecute you. It might be that her case is unprosecutable and it just makes her feel better. And so the immunity deal is kind of a 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But it looks bad when you don't bring it up, I think. And can it be withdrawn? Yes, if she doesn't give truthful testimony. If she gets on the stand and it seems like she's colluding, this is not what's happening. This is, speculation. But if she got on the stand and said, I loaded Baldwin's gun, Hannah had nothing to do with it, and tries to take responsibility for it, they would yoink her immunity deal, say you weren't being truthful on the stand, that's not what you said in any of your interviews, and then turn around and prosecute her. So could it happen? Yes. Is it likely in this case? No. Does it look terrible that the prosecutor didn't tell or talk that through in front of the jury with her? Yeah, whenever the government looks like they're hiding something, even if it's something that's not a big deal, defense will make it look like a big deal, and defense will make it feel shady. And the 10,000 of you in the chat were just like, ew, I hate it. And that's probably how the jury feels too.
Yes, now I do.
Okay, and what is that difference?
Well, what we were using on Rust, between the two, it involves how you load them and unload them, from my
What is
understanding.
the difference in functional characteristics between a single action and a double action?
So with the single action revolver, I believe that's what we were working on with Rust. That was with
Even at 1.25, this
having the
sounds
hammer
slow.
back and the trigger at the same time to load and unload the cylinder, whereas with the double action, that the cylinder flips out.
The cylinder flips out.
Sorry, the cylinder comes out on the side to load the revolver and closes back.
Before Rust, had you worked with a single
An
action type
immunity
revolver?
deal that's
No.
never mentioned.
So on the prior set with Mr. Kinney, he had just shown you a double action?
Yes.
Okay. So with yourself and Mrs. Gutierrez Reed, you also had Nicole Montoya helping, is that right?
Correct.
And Nicole Montoya was also a props assistant, is that right?
Yes.
Now, I think you said yesterday that you knew that there was going to be an armor and an armor's assistant. Did you say that?
I knew that Hannah was going to act as both.
Okay. Was it your understanding that on this film that there was supposed to be an armor and an armor's assistant at first?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with regard to your armor duties, we know that you loaded and unloaded weapons.
Shouting
Did you
into the
also,
void, but is the defense going to make
take
it
those
look
at times
shady?
to the actors?
Yes.
And I think we saw
I
a
think
video
he's already
yesterday
moved all the
where-
way
and
on.
If you remember the scene, Mr. Baldwin
So
is coming out of
maybe
a little
not.
structure. He's shooting towards the cameras up with a blank round. He runs up the hill with the child actor, and then he gets in somebody yells cut, and he still shoots, and then he cusses. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Do you think Alec
And
Baldwin's a
it appeared,
motherfucker?
and correct me if I'm wrong, that you were on that video running towards Mr. Baldwin after he shot. Is that what happened?
I'd have to see the video.
Okay. I bet you don't recollect it right now as we sit here.
Not at the moment.
That's what she said.
On how many occasions did you yourself take firearms to actors?
I just non-ironically said that's what
whenever
she
Hannah
said.
needed it.
Okay.
That's
When
how
she needed
tired I am.
assistance?
Yes.
Okay. You were working under Seth Kenny's license, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's with PDQ Props?
Correct.
And as part of that, are you on his paperwork as being an employee?
I believe so.
And so you weren't actually working physically at his business, but you were on the
That-
paperwork, you were working with PDQ Props,
That
is that fair to
noise
say?
is the
Yes.
court.
Okay. Now, yesterday you indicated that
The court mics are picking up a ton of white noise. I just have to pause and mention it isn't me. I'm going to turn down the gain a little bit that I've got on the audio and hope that that helps it. I don't know if it will, but it's killing my ADHD. I can't. That white background noise is killing me.
first you said that you had thrown away the revolvers,
little
but that
better.
was just a you just got ahead of yourself, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. In reality, what you did is you threw away rounds from 2 revolvers, is that correct?
Correct.
And that was right, that was after the shooting, correct?
Yes.
Now, after the shooting, do you recall how many minutes
Did my mic
went by,
Go
just
low.
roughly,
Hopefully that's
before
better.
you threw away those rounds?
I don't recall.
In that time frame, you also had a conversation with Seth Kenny, correct?
Yes.
And on that conversation, you had texted him previously before that and said emergency?
After the incident, yes.
And then you all talked, and do you recall him giving you any instruction or advice as to what you were calling about? And don't tell what he said, but do you recall him giving you any information?
No.
Okay. So,
future lawyers in the room, it's very easy to say, without telling me what XYZ said, do you recall what you talked to them about? Instead of asking a question, breaking in the middle, and asking a question again. I don't know why I feel like we're in trial ad class today, but
do you recall is what Mr. Kenny said, but do you recall anything from that phone call?
Yes.
What do you recall?
Just him mortified.
Okay. And don't talk about his words again, but just so your impression
better.
was he
Thanks,
was
bye,
mortified.
bun.
Yes.
Okay. How long
I
did that
went and
phone
bought
call
a
last?
5G mobile hotspot last
As I
night.
said yesterday, possibly 30 seconds, a minute.
Party in Vegas at the
So
Verizon
then in that
Wireless
time
store.
frame, you then throw rounds away from the 2 revolvers that you had previously loaded, right?
I believe so, yes.
So the 2 revolvers that you loaded, again, were the Jensen Ackles revolver, right? And then this Savin,
Swen.
Swen, how do you
We
say
learned
his
this-
name?
Swen?
We learned
Swen.
this yesterday.
So those 2 revolvers, you threw the rounds away from,
No,
and you threw them in a trash can.
Correct.
those weren't revolvers. He just misstated it. She didn't catch it. They're talking about the shotguns. She emptied the shotguns. She didn't touch Baldwin's revolver. Again, it makes what the defense said in opening inaccurate and incorrect, and it makes it look like the defense is reaching. Her testimony's not great, but the shotguns weren't involved in an incident, so it's a little bit different. She seems like someone who is acting under stress. She didn't empty the revolvers. She emptied the shotguns because the others didn't have revolvers. So I don't think she thought those were evidence because nothing happened with those guns. So that's where we're at. And if they are starting to say revolvers, they're all misspeaking.
Now, you didn't tell anybody at the scene that you had thrown those away, right?
I didn't tell anyone, but it was in a public
But if
place
he's calling
where
them
someone saw
revolvers,
me.
he's allowing
And-
confusion, and the
yeah.
state's not objecting.
Well,
And the state should
you
object.
didn't want to let anybody know that, did you?
They weren't the rounds in question, so I didn't think it mattered, and I had honestly forgotten.
Well, you knew
Right.
that somebody had been shot, at least one person had been shot, correct?
Correct.
You knew that 911 had been called, is that right?
Did I miss this? She
I
said,
didn't
oh,
hear anybody call 911, but
Jensen
I
and
assumed.
Swen had
And
revolvers on
you
them
would
as well as the
assume that
shotguns.
the police would have to respond to a shooting, correct?
Sure.
And so as part of that, wouldn't you think that the police would want to see everything on set?
Yes.
So when you throw away rounds that they may have wanted to see, don't you understand that to be an issue?
No, because again, it wasn't the rounds in question.
She's like,
But
I
that isn't your
understand that now.
determination, right? To determine what's in question. That is
She's
the
like-
law enforcement's determination, correct?
Okay.
Sir, just like your client, I wish I had done things differently that day. At the time, I was very stressed and I didn't think it mattered. So I in hindsight, I wouldn't have. In hindsight, I would have liked your, I think him narrowing down on you're bad because you threw these away from guns that aren't in question, isn't that so negligent, makes his client look worse. He's trying to shift blame, but it makes his client look worse.
Well, would you agree with me on that?
Sure.
So law enforcement's going to come and you understand they're going to investigate what happened, and the rounds that you're throwing away could be possible evidence that would assist them. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
And so when you made that decision, was that in fact Mr. Kenny directing you to do something?
No.
You threw
There's
away
the
those rounds and the two
insinuation.
revolvers that you loaded. Was it your intention to get rid of the evidence that you had done? In other words, the two you had loaded?
No.
Why ask her that and let her answer it? Why not just argue it in closing? Because now she's got an answer. Why not just leave the insinuation there that that was her intention and move on?
Now, you also, as I understand, took firearms, or you and a couple other people intended to take firearms to the prop truck. Is that correct?
Yes.
The state,
And did you take
Lexi, the state did not mention her immunity deal in their direct examination. And they should have brought it up yesterday when they did the direct examination. It's not something you save for redirect at all. Thanks, y'all. I have a interview with ABC a little bit later on another legal
revolvers? Did you
topic.
take long guns? Do you recall?
Not that I don't dress
It
up for
was
you,
whatever was on the
Loners.
cart,
I do,
but I didn't end up taking them back.
but not when I travel.
You and who was it? Was it Daniel and Nicole?
Correct.
And so the three of you started out to take the firearms from the prop cart to the prop truck. Is that right?
Yes.
How many firearms were there that you were taking back?
I believe from a separate interview, I had said something around 9.
So all 9 of those firearms, were those Seth Kenny's firearms?
I believe so.
All 9 you all wanted to take back to the prop truck. You were removing them from the prop cart right after the shooting, correct?
Yes.
You said you didn't take them back, but did you start with them to start taking them back?
I did.
And what made you turn around then?
I got a text message or phone call from Brian Norvell, and he asked me to bring Hannah her personal bag.
Where was her personal bag?
I believe on the cart.
So you then
brought her
removed the
her
personal
stuff?
bag from the cart and took that, I'm sorry?
Correct.
Okay. And then who did you take that to?
To Hannah.
When you took it to Hannah, her personal bag from the cart, where was she located when you gave that to her?
She was with Brian behind one of the houses in the town.
So we have the church, we've seen the church, and we've seen where that was located. Where was the house where Brian and Hannah were staying at that time?
It was down the hill a little northeast of the church.
Did you know why Brian and Hannah were standing over there after the shooting?
Yeah, the feed
over
out in
by
New
the
Mexico
house?
today is
It was my
real
understanding that
staticky.
Brian was consoling Hannah.
Okay. So in any event, you walked her personal bag from the cart all the way to where they were at.
Yes.
Okay. And that was at Brian Norvell's direction.
Yes.
So you would agree with me, at that point, you didn't have that was somebody else telling you to do something.
Yes.
Okay. But, and it's not your fault on that one, but in terms of taking that bag, I'm not trying to say that. But would you agree with me that
Just
that
ask the
then
question,
took
I don't-
something from the prop cart as well
Sure.
at that moment?
That's
Okay.
a lot of questions.
And again, this is before law enforcement has arrived?
I believe so, but I don't remember.
Okay. Now, yesterday you said that you had thrown away the rounds in a state of shock and panic.
She did say that.
Do I have that right?
Yes.
Now, did you previously state that you had thrown them away because you had done that before?
That I have thrown away dummies before.
Okay. So in your pretrial interview, you mentioned that
So you were
part of the reason you
defaulting.
threw those away was that you had done that before after scenes, correct?
Sometimes, yes. if I
Was she
didn't meet
explaining
them.
that her behavior was defaulting to previous
Would you
behavior
agree
under
with me? You've
stress?
given 2 explanations for why you threw away the rounds
That's
in
the
a
same
shock and panic,
explanation.
and that you had previously done something like that, throwing away rounds. Would you agree with me?
She shouldn't agree. She shouldn't agree at all. No, the shock and panic defaults you to shit you've done before. She shouldn't just agree with him. She should say, no, I was explaining why I thought I behaved that way in a state of shock and panic. I think I behaved that way because I had previously done it. Stop just agreeing with him. You don't have to just agree. But this is the power of cross-examination. You get the witnesses into just saying yes or no, and they're like, yes, no, and they will start agreeing to stuff that might not actually be what they mean.
Yes,
Are these dummy rounds? These are obviously reusable, aren't they?
they are.
So,
Which is why
when
it's
you
so
throw
hard to
them away,
testify in
somebody
court,
has paid
'cause you're
for
under
those,
so
like
much stress.
production or production. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Did they production instruct you to throw those rounds away after scenes?
No.
So this is their property. Would you agree with me? The dummy rounds?
I mean, you throw away blanks afterwards too.
Well, if blanks can be reused again, wouldn't you agree with me that those are something that the set could use again, that they purchased?
Blanks can't be reused.
Okay, well then, how about dummies?
Sure.
So again, my question was, would
Blanks
you
can be
agree
reused?
that that's their property that you're throwing away?
Not if they're fired, though.
I guess so.
So you made the decision to throw away the rounds, and you then interviewed with the police on October 21st. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And that was the same day?
Yes.
And do you recall whether you told them that you had thrown away those rounds?
I don't recall if I did or not.
Did you tell anybody else that you had thrown away those rounds?
I believe Nicole was standing there when it happened, so I'm sure she saw.
She said can't, not can. Thank you, chat. I might switch feeds. The static is killing me on this feed. So,
After the shooting had
give me a
happened,
moment.
did Miss Gutierrez read,
It
did
makes
you
me
see
want
the
to
rounds that came out
claw
of the
out my
revolver?
earballs.
She showed me, yes.
And did you see what happened to those rounds
I just wanted to look
after
at
she showed you?
where we were at.
Did you take possession of the spent casing from Miss Gutierrez Reed?
I believe I might have. I know I had said that before.
Yes. And so Miss Gutierrez Reed hands you the spent casing, which is the one that's been fired, correct?
Yes.
And then what did you do with that spent casing?
I believe I took it over to the prop cart.
What happened to the other rounds that Miss Gutierrez Reed had shown you from that revolver?
I don't know.
Did you follow up to see what had happened with them?
No.
Okay. With regard to that live round after you put it on the cart, did you touch that again?
Touch the spent casing?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So you came back over, then did you go and check other rounds to determine whether you believed them to be live?
Yes, as I said yesterday, I did check the box that was on top of the cart.
Now there were multiple boxes on the cart, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And so did you rattle some of those rounds?
And the one box, yes, that was on top.
And you determined that you believed there were, I think there was a statement that, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but that you thought maybe half of them might be live?
That was an original statement, yes.
And in hindsight, do you think that's not correct?
As I said yesterday, I don't think that's correct.
Okay. But in any event, you determined that some of them were live in your belief.
Yes.
And who did you tell that to?
Law enforcement.
Okay. On the day of the shooting on October 21st, do you recall there being any safety meeting?
No.
That same day, there's no safety meeting. Do you remember right before the incident in the church, did Hannah take the revolver to go check it with Dave Halls?
Yes.
You were not in the church, correct?
I was not.
And you were located outside. Where were you?
I was at the prop truck.
I
Or
would-
not, sorry, prop cart.
I would love to hear if she
And your
knows
car, was it to the
if
right
Dave
of the church?
handed, if Hannah
when
gave
you're
Dave the
looking
gun.
at the church at the front door, then
I would
yes,
really
to
like
the right.
to know that.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. 93% of you feel like the state not mentioning immunity on direct
revolvers
makes
that
it
you
look shady.
Remove rounds from and threw them away.
It's just a matter of perception.
You-
I agree with
do you
that
remember how many
perception.
rounds were in them?
I do not.
Okay, so you're not able to tell us whether there were 6 or whether less, you don't know?
It's been 2.5 years, no.
Okay. But you did testify yesterday, you said that they were dummies.
Correct.
How did you know that?
I personally checked them.
And then you don't remember how many of them there were, though?
No.
When you interviewed with law enforcement, did they ask you for your phone?
On the day of?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
Why would they?
And you had been texting and
They didn't have
talking
probable
to
cause to
Kenny,
search
right?
her phone at that
Correct.
point.
Had you been texting and talking to anybody else that day?
Other than Seth Kinney?
Just, I don't remember.
Okay. After the shooting,
Probably.
Well, let me back up. Yesterday, I think you mentioned, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you had not.
Like, is it weird if you're talking or texting to anybody else? Like, wouldn't it be, yes, probably. What happened at work was really crazy. I was probably talking to everybody. Like, that's not weird.
You wouldn't talk to Alec Baldwin much on that set. Is that fair?
No.
Okay. Did you have Mr. Baldwin's cell
No,
phone
it's not
number
fair, or no, you didn't
before
talk to him
the
much?
shooting?
No.
Did you ever text him before the shooting?
No.
Do you recall that you did text him after the shooting?
Yes.
And how did you get Mr. Baldwin's number?
His assistant had personally contacted me because I was in contact with him before while we were shooting.
The personal
and he
assistant?
requested to talk to me.
Baldwin
Okay,
requested
and
to talk to you?
So after the shooting, you and Mr. Baldwin.
That'll be
do you
interesting
talk
at
on the phone
Baldwin's
also?
trial.
Yes.
And you also text.
A couple times.
Do you recall
That's
making a
interesting.
statement on October 31st, 2021 that Alec called me and I'm trying to make sure I keep my facts straight?
Yes.
And do you recall you made that statement to Seth Kinney?
Yes.
Why?
How many calls and how many calls, let's start with that, did you have with Alec Baldwin after the
What was
shooting?
Baldwin up to?
Maybe 3.
And did you discuss the facts of what happened with him?
It was more theorizing because we both didn't know what happened. He mainly would call and ask questions.
I have
that I didn't have
questions.
answers to.
I have a lot of
He was asking questions about the events and what might have happened, right?
Correct.
Did you ask him questions?
No.
You also texted with him.
Was this
several
before
times.
or after
You
he
remember
talked to
that?
law enforcement? Probably
Yes.
after he talked to law enforcement. What are you talking to
You
Baldwin
recall
about?
also making a statement on or about October 23rd, 2021, that you had talked to Alec and he's having a difficult time recalling things, like most of us, but he thinks that Dave handed him the gun.
I don't know who that was with.
If I showed you a text message, would that refresh your memory?
Yes.
Chad, I will just
Sure.
say, yes, it is a lot of hearsay, but the reason they're talking about it is not to offer the truth of what Baldwin said. They're trying to get to whether her statements are consistent or whether her statements have changed, whatever. But the defense is trying to make it look like all these folks who aren't getting in trouble, all the folks who aren't getting in trouble had a little chitty chat, and we're like, Hannah did it. Can we all just say that Hannah did it? And that's what they're trying to, that's what the defense is trying to insinuate. And I think at this point, with some success, you let me know. If it feels kind of gross to you, I wonder how it feels to the jury. And they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. It's morning. I mean, it's a Friday, but they're not in Vegas like I am. So they're probably brighter-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Read the top text.
I feel like I've been dragged behind 7 days of trial and a plane ride. Don't put those in evidence unless they're redacted, counsel. We wouldn't want your number on the internet again. Are these texts between her and Hannah? Can't wait. Or her and Baldwin? Like, did Baldwin ever speak to her on set before this
Refresh your
happened?
memory?
It does.
Okay. Do you recall making the statement that you had talked to Alec and he's having a difficult time recalling things like most of us, but he thinks that Dave handed him the gun?
I do.
And you recall making that with Seth Kinney?
Yes.
Okay. After the shooting occurred and the incident occurred, did you go back on or about October 27th for the search of the prop truck?
That would have to be the day
I will
that
say,
the
though,
police were there.
all of
And
this
you may not
nonsense,
recall the day, but do you recall it?
all of the shadiness, all of the nonsense, all of the rumors, the nastiness, all of it does not change the fact at the end of the day that she loaded the gun and she admitted to loading the gun and she didn't check it adequately when she loaded it. Whether or not the jury will be like, yeah, but fuck this shit, is yet to be seen. But the prosecution's going to have to do an unforeseen, a yet to be seen job of narrowing down the issues. I worry that the prosecution's so lost in the weeds with all of the things that they're not going to narrow down on the issue and say, people did chat after set. People were trying to figure out what happened. This was a crazy event. People didn't think there were going to be criminal charges. But that didn't change Hannah's behavior before the shooting. And we're here about Hannah's behavior before the shooting. I don't know if they'll do that or not, but it makes it feel a lot shadier. And the defense's argument is they're all pinning it on Hannah. Is it feeling that way to you? Does that excuse her recklessness?
Being 5 or 6 days after the shooting.
I don't recall the day.
Okay. Prior to going, did you provide the code
Thank
to
you,
the
Imagine
safe
Wolf.
to
You've
Seth
made my
Kennedy?
day. I do a pretty
believe I
decent
did.
Meredith.
Before you had provided him that code, who had the code to the safe?
Hannah's facing like
Hannah,
18
me,
months.
and Nicole.
You then gave the code to Seth Kenny. Did you give that code to anyone else?
I don't think so.
And chat, remember,
The prop
in
truck search
trial,
happens. Are you present for that search?
You should be
They
like
were there
this,
before I got there. They had already started the process.
When you got there, was Seth Kenny there?
especially in a trial like
Did
this.
you
There should be an
retrieve
up
some
and
of your
down of
personal
like,
belongings
what about this
that
and what
day?
about that? There should be a bit of a
not
roller
until
coaster to
after
how you
the
feel.
Before that search, had you retrieved some of your personal belongings from the set?
I had attempted to go back because everyone else was able to go back to their trucks to retrieve their things, but ours was still locked, so I was not able to retrieve.
She couldn't retrieve her personal effects because they were in the prop
Ultimately, you
truck.
did retrieve your property?
Correct.
Okay.
Is it like, what do you
At
do
one
if your
point,
car keys
there was
are in
a
there?
negligent discharge on set we've heard about, and that involved you handling a firearm, is that right?
Yes.
And again, you were trying to let the hammer down, you had your finger on the trigger, and then it went off, is that correct?
Yes.
And that was with one of the revolvers?
Correct.
After that, didn't you have a disagreement with Miss Gutierrez Reed?
A small one, yes.
Did you thereafter have discussions with people about wanting to fire Hannah?
I didn't want to fire her. I had my disagreements with her, but I never actually fired her or wanted to.
Okay, you said you didn't want to fire her?
No.
Do you recall being interviewed on November 2nd, 2023 in this case?
Did you say something different,
And
babes?
you were asked the question, okay, did you want to fire her? Your answer is yes, and that's on page 19, 2 to 3. Did you want to fire her? You said yes.
Okay.
Do you recall saying
I
that?
do.
Okay, so
So did you,
is
or
it
did
true
you
then
not?
that you wanted to fire her?
From props, yes.
Okay, but a second ago you said you had not made that statement, but
Yeah, I'm correcting myself now.
okay. So the reality is that you had wanted to fire her.
From props.
Yes. And other people had wanted to fire her as well, right?
Girl, in the civil lawsuit where Hannah sues Seth Kinney, Hannah alleges in that civil suit that has since resolved or been dismissed. I can't remember which, and I haven't double checked. It's been really busy. The allegations are that her and Seth like set her up, that her and Seth were talking about Hannah behind her back, that her and Seth were kind of mad that Hannah was a Nepo baby, that they, because her dad's in the industry, that they didn't think she was qualified, they didn't think she deserved the role. I will say, the fact that Sarah has worked with Seth Kinney as well, and Seth was training her as an armorer, to me, lends a little weight to that. The thing is, people can have beef and not sabotage each other, but we're running towards that sabotage narrative from the defense. But this is all what they were alleging, but it doesn't make Sarah Zachery look good. But did we think Sarah Zachery was going to come in looking good? I mean, at the end of the day, she didn't throw away the rounds from the revolver that was shot. So now we're just getting into the mud of all of it. I'm here for the tea, but I don't know if it helps in this trial at all.
From Seth, or
Just in general.
I believe Seth wanted me to do something about it, yes.
And I think what you just stated is you did not do anything, ultimately.
She did not know.
Seth wanted you to do something about firing Hannah from props?
One of the reasons why you had wanted to
Why
fire
is that
Hannah
his
is that you
business?
didn't feel she was doing enough with her props duties.
Correct.
Oh, now we've got full
And you
answers.
communicated that to Hannah as well, right?
I did not.
We've
You
got
did
full
not tell
answers
that?
now.
That you wanted her to do more in her props duties?
I don't think I actually,
How did we go in 3 questions from I didn't want to fire her to, yeah, she wasn't doing enough work? Man.
told her that. I just had asked her to do things and she didn't want to do them.
Did you know that Hannah
Were
and
you
Gabrielle
asking-
Pickle then had a disagreement over props duties?
I did hear about it, yes.
And
I can
there
see
was
that
an email
happening
that
on
you knew
set.
about?
Hannah showed me, yes.
Okay. And I'm not going to ask you to talk about the contents of it, but you did see an email on that.
Yes.
That was approximately October 16th or 17th that you had that disagreement, right?
About,
With Hannah, that small disagreement?
oh, yes.
And so that's 5 days before the shooting.
Okay.
And then at what point was the decision made by you that you wanted to fire Hannah? Was it the 16th? Was it the 17th? Do you remember what day that was?
I don't.
You talked to September.
Andrea
about
said
that.
she is coming across a little less credible during
How
this
many times did you talk to him
cross-examination.
about that?
And that's a good cross-examination. That's the job.
Now, one thing I forgot to ask you was after the 21st, after the incident had happened, you don't have a good memory of the sequence of events?
I do not.
You remember that yourself and Nicole had been at the prop cart when the shot went off, is that right?
Yes,
And you did not see Hannah at that point, or did you?
I had not.
Okay. Right after it happened, is the
We're
next
at
time that you remember
1.25 and
seeing
this still
Hannah
feels slow.
was when they were unloading the revolver?
No,
Did I
she was in
change
front
it?
of the church, by herself,
Jeez.
looking at the church.
Okay.
Imagine
And
how
then
slow this
at
is for
some
the
point, they
jury.
unload the revolver, and then she goes over with Brad Norvell to one of the other houses. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Did you see Hannah get loaded into the police car?
No.
After the incident took place and you come back and given Hannah her bag, did you talk to people on the set?
Yes.
And where were you standing when you were talking to people?
How many people were
I
you
was in
talking to?
town at one point, and then back at base camp.
So did those people include Alec Baldwin and David Halls?
No.
Yeah, we're
Who did you talk
sped
to?
up and this is slow as
Jensen
hell.
and Swen and Nicole.
Jensen was
Did you
comforting
ever
her.
see or hear about a
She
lawyer
said.
being on set?
No.
After that, what time did you leave the set?
To go back to base camp or
To leave completely.
maybe not until 9:30.
Okay, so you stayed approximately 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah.
What were you doing during that time frame?
A lot of it was waiting around. We were at base camp for a long time, waiting to be interviewed by the police.
You were interviewed then on site.
Were y'all chatting
Yes.
with each other while you were waiting? Because it sure as fuck sounds like they were.
Since you were on site, you would have had the opportunity to tell the police at that point that you had thrown those rounds away, right?
Sure.
And you don't recall whether you did that?
I don't know.
Do you feel like that's something that you would
Also,
remember
y'all,
if you had done it?
I know we're a little bit behind live court, so I can zoom past the breaks. So if any of you are also watching live
Okay,
court,
I
watching
wanna-
both, please no spoilers. Thank you. You guys were so great about that yesterday. I appreciate it. I was surprised, and I'm like, y'all didn't tell me, and they're like, y'all said you told us not to, and I was like, y'all listen.
I'm sorry,
'Cause
just a moment.
Chat is back.
Do
Great. Take a moment.
you recall ever telling law enforcement that you had thrown those rounds away?
Yes.
When was that?
I remember telling them like a month later when I was talking to Detective Alex.
Okay, we're talking about October 21st, 21, when this happened.
Do you remember when on cross they were flaming one of the attorneys and they're like, oh, you never checked the trash for rounds? And the law enforcement officer was like, we weren't told till a month later. This corroborates that. Law enforcement said we didn't even know that the rounds from Jensen's weapons and the other actors' weapons were tossed till a month later. And this coincides with that she didn't tell them till a month later. I imagine it's because her entire body puckered when she realized that Helena Hutchins had died and that she had thrown things in the trash. Could have told them that night, but now she's saying, I told them a month later.
Yes.
And you interviewed then. And you interviewed with Mr. Scott Elliott
Ma'am.
on November 2nd, 2023, correct?
With who?
Uh,
Sorry.
that was an interview with an investigator on this case. Mr. Elliott, do you recall that individual?
I do not.
Okay. In that interview, just to remind you, you had an attorney present. Do you remember that interview?
I remember Detective Alex.
You were present with your
Okay.
client.
Elliott.
Do you
Not
remember
much-
the interview
not much
in
good was
November
done.
2023 when Spirit Gaines was present?
Who?
I do not.
Okay. If I showed you a copy of this, would it might refresh your memory?
Let's just play our interview. All right, I'm going to pause this here. I'm going to switch feeds and see if we can do one with a little less crackle in the background, and I will try to pull up questions as we can as we zoom along through this. But this is not great testimony for Sarah Zachery, though she is not the one in trouble here. But it does seem as though everyone was chatting about this incident after the incident. Doesn't it sure feel that everyone was having a conversation about what happened except for Hannah? Because Hannah, after the thing happened, Hannah was put in a cop car. Hannah went to the bathroom. Hannah was taken to the police station. Hannah was interviewed. Hannah was interviewed a few days later again. She's not interviewed again until over a month later. It's kind of bananas. I think we've gotten to the part on a different feed where he walks up and hands her this to refresh her recollection. So we are now caught up on that feed. Let me just change the audio there real quick. However, if we switch over, I think we will have closed captioning because some of the feeds do and some of the feeds don't. So let's switch feeds real quick because we make decisions in real time and see how it goes with the court TV feed. So let's see if the crackling's better. Once
I recall making the statement that you had talked to Alec.
Unmuted.
He's having a difficult time recalling things like most of us, but he thinks that Dave handed him the gun.
I do.
Oh, this was behind. This is when he handed her the text messages. Hold on, let's get to the sidebar. There we are. There's the sidebar.
You also talked to Weston Brownlee after the shooting incident? Is that right?
He did send me a message, yes,
So you texted with him?
briefly.
And that was about...
Oh my God, this is quiet, but the audio is so much better.
Do you recall being angry at Miss Gutierrez Reed at one point on or about October 29th, 2021? You said, I hope she's put in jail. This is outrageous.
I don't remember the specific text message. I'd have to look at it.
If I showed it to you, would it refresh your memory?
Possibly.
Well, motive? If you're the defense, you're waiting for that text message to come in and you're like, so you want to see her put in
Now
jail.
that you've had a chance to read it, does that remind you whether you said that?
Yes.
Did you?
So you agree that you said, I hope she's put in jail. This is outrageous.
Yes.
This is outrageous.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further.
Good way to end cross.
Sure.
Good way to end cross. So you want to see her put in jail.
Yes.
Oh, wait. I thought you ended cross. Sorry. Wait a sec, Your Honor. Just one more. He's like me ending a conversation. It's like, wait. I got a few more questions.
Ms. Zachry, you mentioned earlier that you had rattled some of the rounds to check if they were live.
Yes.
Did you notice that when law enforcement got there, the boxes were closed?
I don't remember.
Do you recall closing the box up after you had rattled the rounds?
I don't recall.
When the prop truck search was done days after the shooting, do you recall the prop cart being inside the prop truck?
When police came to retrieve the weapons, I
Yeah.
don't remember it being in the truck.
Did you go in the prop truck during the search?
After police left, yes.
Did you see the prop cart inside of it?
I don't remember.
Did you ever get the impression after in discussions with Mr. Kinney that he didn't want you to say anything
About
about anything?
All of
Not
it?
talk about anything?
All.
with just anyone?
Yes.
That wasn't my impression.
Objection, Peg. Bad question. Because I think Seth Kinney wanted her to talk to law enforcement.
Do you remember a point in time when you were texting with Mr. Kinney and you had indicated that you were talking to Alec Baldwin, and then he responds with an emoji?
I don't recall.
You
What
ever
emoji
recall
was it?
Ever getting an emoji with the hand over the mouth?
No.
Do you know what
Show it to her.
that means, that emoji? That I'm
Oop.
talking about? One where it's just kind of going like that?
Are we talking about the oop emoji?
No. I mean,
Does it not mean to keep your mouth closed?
it's not what I see that as.
Okay. So in your testimony, you don't believe Mr. Kinney
I'm
ever
putting up
told
a
you
poll
not
as to
to
what that
talk to
emoji
people
means.
about what had happened?
Isn't that
That's your
the,
testimony.
I
like,
don't recall.
Okay.
I would need to see exactly which emoji it was. Thank you, chat. But is
Cross-examine-
that
I mean,
the,
redirect? Thank you.
this is true, Linda. Look, there's the zipper mouth emoji, not the emoji. Not me acting out emojis in a live stream.
Ms. Zachry, I've got a few follow-up questions for you.
I bet you
Do
do.
you recall the specific language of your cooperation agreement with the state of New Mexico in terms of...
Carrie, I got a few questions for you. Why didn't you bring this up on direct? Because it made your witness look shady as fuck, in my opinion. I mean, there were other things, but not disclosing the immunity agreement felt like y'all were hiding something.
the requirement
We
that you
don't like it.
testify truthfully?
Yes.
Do you recall this specific language?
Oh, no.
Would it refresh your memory if I showed it to you?
Sure.
He asked her that. This isn't. Why don't you have any of this on paper?
Okay. I'll read
I
you that
hate
paragraph,
this.
and then I'll ask you some questions about it. Are you required to give truthful testimony?
Yes.
What happens to your agreement with me if you don't give truthful testimony?
Yoink.
Then I'm not bound by that testimony or that cooperation agreement anymore.
Right. If you don't give truthful testimony, I can prosecute you if I want to, right?
Correct.
For what though, ma'am? What are you going to prosecute her for?
You were asked a
Perjury? I don't
variety
think
of
we're there.
questions about
I don't think she did anything.
Whether or
on set,
not
she
you wanted
covered stuff
to-
up afterwards.
fire Ms. Gutierrez. Do you recall
No
those
evidence of
questions?
that.
Yes.
Yeah, chat. I'm with you on what the emoji means. I think it's the OMG emoji.
In terms of your role as boss of Ms. Gutierrez, you were only her boss with regard to her work with props.
I
is
didn't
that
put
right?
up the poll. Sorry, chat.
I'm sorry. I'm objection.
It is leading. It's all leading. Her entire questioning style is leading.
Were you in charge of firearms on this set?
No.
Were you in charge of props?
Yes.
Explain to the jury what your role was with regard to supervising Ms. Gutierrez in her capacity as prop assistant versus
I didn't
armorer.
put up the poll because
When
we
it
didn't know
came
exactly which
to
emoji it was.
being a props assistant, that's where I would ask her to help me with those miscellaneous props that I had mentioned earlier.
Okay, we'll put up
But armor is in a different department from my understanding, and so she was in charge of that. So what she said goes for the weapons, not props.
Does the armorer have autonomy when it comes to weapons?
Yes.
During the time that you worked with Ms. Gutierrez, did you find her to be easy to work with?
No.
During the time that you worked with Ms. Gutierrez as her supervisor in props, did she call you a cunt?
Oh shit!
Yes.
Was it around that time that you decided you might want to fire her?
No, it was just overall.
Ma'am, Sarah, in your earlier testimony, when they asked, did you want to fire her? Why did you say no? Why didn't you just say, yes, I did want to fire her because she kept calling me a cunt? Like, okay, now we can all go. That I didn't see that coming. So the beef went deep. Let's hear it. I want to hear more about
What
the
else
beef.
about working with Ms. Gutierrez was difficult other than her referring to you as a cunt?
Carrie, how many times do you want to say cunt in
Mainly,
court?
I just felt like her work ethic wasn't the greatest. She wasn't always willing to help in a year or two. She was usually wanting to be in the truck to clean guns for the day. And
Ma'am, are you saying that she didn't want to do prop work because she was trying to do only armorer work? Because it makes it sound like she was putting her foot down on doing the prop work so she could do the armorer work. And then when you said, I need you to go roll cigarettes, she said, fuck you, cunt, I'm cleaning the guns. That's what it sounds like happened. Well, YouTube, I apologize. That's the word you hate the most.
yeah.
Did Ms. Gutierrez ever show up to set late?
One day, yes.
Only one?
Did she give you a reason for that?
She had a migraine.
Hey, State, remember your theory about her being hungover? If this is someone who suffers from migraines doing a job at altitude in a really dusty environment, I feel like your theory that she was hungover is going to get really, really difficult because she had a migraine is a legit reason to be late to set. So we now have evidence that she was suffering from headaches while working on this set, which sucks. which absolutely sucks. But if the state tries to come in and be like, no, she was hungover, that's not going to fly because now we have evidence that that's not the case.
She told you she had a migraine.
Correct.
Did you
But
believe
she
her?
was able to show up and work at some point that day, right?
Yes.
So
Maybe,
apparently the migraine didn't last all day.
No.
maybe she has medication for the migraine. Where are you going with this, Carrie? Like, there's a million reasons a migraine might not last all day. Are you going to elicit medical testimony from her that it was her opinion that she was hungover and didn't actually, in fact, have a migraine? Because I don't think this witness
After
is
the
qualified.
incident, did you have contact with Ms. Gutierrez when she was sitting in the back of Mr. Benavidez's police car?
I believe so, yes.
And why were you
I'm
having
shocked
contact
that we're
with
dropping
her?
the C word in
was
court. I
just
love
checking
it.
on her to see if she was okay.
And did you ask her if she was okay?
Yes.
I mean, some people have migraines that last all day.
And what
Some
was her
take
response?
medication, they go away. Some have migraines that last days.
Did she express concerns to you about how this might affect her career?
Yep.
I mean, she said that on a police video. Her face was like, I'm so glad we can
Zachary,
fast
during
forward
that
through
conversation, do
sidebars.
you recall Ms. Gutierrez saying anything about her career?
Yes.
And what did she say to the best of your recollection?
My career's over.
I don't remember verbatim, but it was about that this was going to ruin her career.
She
Now,
said
at the
that on
time
the
that she's telling
police-
you that she's worried about her career, is there a life flight helicopter on the ground waiting for Ms. Hutchins?
Your Honor, objection again.
Overruled.
I think it was before that.
It was
How do you overrule an objection when you don't know what the grounds are? Because I don't know what the grounds are. Maybe he said it at the sidebar, but I'm not sure what the grounds are.
before life flight arrived.
It was right after the incident.
But police were on set, correct?
I don't.
Hang on a second. I'm sorry. I agree with you. When you spoke to Ms. Gutierrez, where was she?
So
She
glad
was
you
in
can
front
all
of the
work it out
church.
together, Carrie.
When you spoke to her about her concerns about her career, where was she?
She was in front of the church.
I'm sorry, she wasn't in the police car.
No, we didn't talk about that at that point.
You didn't talk about that at that point.
Not that I recall.
Okay.
This witness's facial
At the time
expression
that you
with
spoke
Carrie
to
yelling
her,
at her
when
has
she indicated
changed so
concerns
much.
about
She's
her
like,
career,
stop yelling at me. Stop
what was
yelling at me.
happening?
Chaos. Everyone was trying to figure out what happened.
Carrie, this is your witness. This is your witness. And she's like, why are you yelling? Like, her face is like, why are you yelling at me? Like, she looks more distressed than she was during cross-examination. She's like, what is happening? Yikes.
Were people screaming?
It was after Joel screamed, and I know that the script supervisor was getting angry at everyone.
Maybe Mitchell, the one who's suing?
Do
Of
you
course
know,
she's
was
suing. Everybody's
911 being
suing.
called?
I didn't, like I said before, I didn't hear 911 call or being called, but I assumed that.
I
they were
often
being
also
called.
respond to stress with
If you
anger.
know, were people laying on the floor of the church?
Joel, I saw Joel at that point.
You didn't see Ms. Hutchins,
I didn't.
I
see
feel like I'm
that-
being yelled
not
at.
Clean at all.
but you understand that she was laying on the floor also.
Objection.
Calls for speculation.
At some point later, did you realize that Ms. Hutchins was injured?
I was told yes.
And when you saw Ms. Gutierrez after the incident, was she standing at the door of the church?
She was a little further back.
I don't know what the point of this entire line of questioning is other than to make Hannah look like she sucks, but I think Hannah did that in her own words more effectively than this witness is doing. People got shot inside the church with the weapon that Hannah loaded, and Hannah's response to it is basically, my fucking career is over. I'll never work in this town again. And she told law enforcement that, I just want to get off this set and never work in this town again. We've heard it in Hannah's own words. You don't need it from this witness. It's more damning in Hannah's own words. This witness has no idea where you're going with it. And we already know that. But this witness is like, fuck, why are you screaming at me? We've already got that information in Hannah's own words. Play it in closing in Hannah's words. We know Hannah said my career's over. We know her first concern was for herself. And
Any point in time did you see her standing at the door of the church?
this witness is not your knight in
I don't
shining
recall.
armor,
Okay.
ma'am. You know who was? Ross. Ross was your good witness. The rest of these
Can
people.
you explain to the jury why you thought it was important after the incident to remove the guns from the area and get them back to the truck?
Because Jensen told her to.
And like I said, Jensen Ackles had told me to get the guns to safety, so that's what we were intending on doing,
Because
was
Jensen
to remove
took
them
control
from
of the
set and
scene
get them back to the safe on the.
And tried to sort everything out.
And you were asked to provide Ms. Gutierrez her personal bag, is that right?
Yes.
And I want you to describe that for the jury. What did it look like?
I don't remember.
Was it the fanny pack or not?
Leading. Asked and
I
answered.
don't think that's leading.
It's asked and
Was it
answered,
the-
and it's leading.
Overruled.
Was it the fanny pack?
No, Your
I don't
Honor.
remember.
It's both
Okay.
asked and answered and leading. I don't think that's leading. Your opinion's not the one that matters, Your Honor.
You talked to
Can you
Mr.
just
Bowles
not
about
go
the
with
fact
her?
that on occasion you would throw away dummies after a scene was shot. Why would you do that?
I didn't need them anymore.
Is that something that you did when you were working on the set of Rust?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. How many times do you think you did that during filming?
I don't know.
Do you know whether production has purchased those dummies or whether they are renting them?
At the time, I had thought they were purchased, but after reading the invoices, I found out that they were rentals.
So who were they renting?
V-Rod said, so Jensen, the actor, took control and directed safety. It seemed that Jensen tried to take control outside of the church while other people were taking control inside the church, because that's immediately where he was. And he told props, get these guns to safety, and was trying to kind of corral people outside of the church while people were giving medical on site at the church. So yes, it seemed that he kind of stepped up while people were giving medical inside, that he was helping very much wrangle people outside to make it orderly. So, but the reason he's not a witness is because it has nothing to do with what happened in the church.
Them from?
The vendors.
Or who loaded the
Seth
weapon.
Kenny and Billy Ray.
Okay.
I know we all want Jensen on the witness list for our own personal.
At some point, you
Love
were
of
asked by
Jensen,
law
but
enforcement to
not gonna happen.
agree to a full extraction of your cell phone, correct?
Yes,
And did you agree to do that?
I did.
Mr. Bowles asked you some questions about your contact with Mr. Baldwin.
I would love to know more about that too.
To the best of your recollection, what specifically was the
Are you
issue
trying to
that
elicit hearsay?
you and Mr. Baldwin spoke of?
Mainly how a live round ended up on set.
We'd all like to know
So
that
Mr.
too.
Baldwin wanted to find out how a live round ended up on the movie set.
How is this a proper question? How is this not A, hearsay, B, speculative? How is Mr. Baldwin is not on trial, Carrie, lest I remind you that that doesn't happen till July. None of this has anything to do with Hannah loading the gun. And how is this a proper question? If there's not an objection, I'm going to yell.
Right?
Yes.
Insert goat scream. Okay.
Did you also?
What
I
is
did
court?
want to know, yes.
And Mr. Bowles asked you about a text message
We just
where
live
you
here now.
indicated you were trying to keep your facts straight.
Mm-hmm.
What did you mean by that?
I was trying to recall things correctly when I was telling people.
Yeah, it
things.
sounds shady though.
Did you have difficulty recalling certain things?
Yes.
Why?
Trauma will do that.
I mean, in a state of shock and when everything's crazy, I couldn't remember things quite right.
How do you know they weren't quite right though? How do you know they weren't quite
You were
right?
asked some questions about
Don't leave that hanging.
Mr. Kinney being present the
Oh, this
day
isn't
of
cross,
the
I
search of the
forgot.
prop truck. To be clear, where was the safe that housed the guns?
On the prop truck.
Was it inside the truck?
Yes.
And could anyone get into the safe if the truck was locked?
No.
You had to get into the truck to get into the safe.
Yes.
And you understood that the safe was locked, or that the truck was locked.
Yes.
Okay. I don't.
At any point in time, if you recall, did
Think
you
that
tell
helps.
production, anyone in production, that you needed more assistance with props?
Yes.
Why didn't all this come up on?
Do you know whether
direct?
it was before or after that that Ms. Pickle had a conversation with Ms. Gutierrez?
It was before.
Do you have any experience in police investigations?
No.
I forgot to bring the pickles.
Do you
so
have
we
any
just get
idea what the police are
pickle.
looking for on a crime scene?
No.
I feel like I'm being yelled
Were
at by the
the guns
prosecutor.
or the dummy rounds that were assigned to Mr. Ackles and Mr. Timmel involved in the incident?
No.
It's a good follow-up.
I don't have anything further.
Good.
Sure.
All right, we're approaching. I'm going to zoom. He's asking for. I think he's asking for recross.
I'll reserve Ms. Zachry for the record.
All right, so
Oh.
don't talk to the other witnesses in this case. She may be recalled. Okay, so next witness. Maybe
All
we'll
right.
take a bathroom break, just gonna, who is,
Whatever you choose. I think he's ready, but if you'd like to take the break now, I don't mind.
all right, let's take a bathroom break. Please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received.
I imagine the next witness will, in fact, be Seth Kinney. I'll be surprised if it's not. Just chat, no spoilers. Court's on break. Let's zoom. I think we're going to catch up more to real time. I really did want to avoid the morning break as best we could, and we've done so flawlessly. I will answer some questions as we're pulling that up. Elizabeth said, my gavel turned gold today. Congratulations on a year. Elizabeth, Brandy Rose, good to see you. Fun fact for anyone wondering, the start of court today, Alec Baldwin's name has been said 338 times. Recovery Addict has a counter going. I love that Recovery
All
Addict
right,
has a
maybe
Baldwin
seated.
counter.
Call
It's
your next witness.
ridiculous.
The state calls Joel Souza.
Oh, the director, Joel Souza, not Seth Kinney. Surprising, but no, I really do want to hear from Joel Souza. Here's what I imagine. Much like Ross, I imagine that this is going to be very emotional and difficult testimony. This is the director who is also shot. So, Miguelina, let's remind the text crew that the director is on the stand. We are truly getting to the end of the state's witnesses, but I imagine this is going to be very hard for Joel. I don't know if the defense will have much smoke for Joel, but we'll see what happens. Really interested to hear what he has to say.
Stand before the judge, raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Have a seat talking to the microphone.
Thank you.
And that water is for you.
Well, thank you.
I apologize. Mr. Souza, for the record, just state your full name.
Joel Souza.
And Mr. Souza, what? Oh, I apologize.
I'm a screenwriter and
Sir, what do you do for a living?
I am a screenwriter and a director.
I want you to move that microphone a little closer to
Sure.
me.
Sure.
Thank you. How long have you been a screenwriter and a director?
Oh gosh, I've been a working screenwriter and director for. I wrote before I directed, so 20 years on the writing. Gosh, let me date myself here. 15 years directing.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
How did you become involved in the movie Rust?
I had made a movie called Crown Vic that came out, I think, in 2018 or 2019. And
I want
there
to
was
see
a
if
time
he
when
knows
actor Alec
who
Baldwin was going to be starring in that movie.
handed the gun
And,
to Baldwin. I'm
This
very
happens with
curious about
independent movies.
his
You
recollection
sort of
of
get ready
that.
to go, your financing falls apart, you push the boulder uphill again, your financing falls apart, you rinse and repeat endlessly, sometimes it seems like. But the schedule sort of ran out on us and he wasn't able to star in it. He stayed on as a producer. After that movie, he liked it and I think he felt like he missed out or something. So we talked about doing another project together with him as an actor. And I had a couple of things in mind, one of which I wanted to make a Western. And he thought that sounded interesting. And so he hired me to write the script.
Okay, so you actually wrote the script for Rust.
Yeah.
And then at some point, did you begin preparations to actually turn that script into a movie?
Yeah, and it was sort of a similar.
We got
situation to what
9,000
I talked about
finance
before.
guys.
You meet with a lot of different people who hopefully can put financing together for you for the movie, and you get close, and then it would fall apart and get close. You have these different iterations.
Melly in
and
the
you start
chat said,
thinking
"Are
about
these
where
the
you're
same
gonna film
witnesses for
and-
Baldwin's case too?" A
But,
lot of them
eventually,
will be.
yeah, the group of
There will
producers
be
came
some
on that was
additional
able to
witnesses, but a
secure
lot of them will be.
financing for it, and so then discussions began about where you would film. New Mexico has a pretty robust tax incentive and works for many reasons for a Western.
Can I put it back
And yeah,
to
so from
normal
that
speed?
point
Not
forward, sort of
until we
would
get past
kind of in earnest
the
begin to start
background
preparing to
training,
go into what's called
financing
pre-production,
stuff.
which is just a period in the months before you
It'll
actually
catch
start
up to
filming.
real time in just a moment.
And how did Ms. Hutchins
we'll get
become
there.
involved in the movie Rust?
All of this is
So-
background.
Over time, just generally as a director, if I would see the work of a cinematographer that I admired, I would just make a note of it, make a note of their name. And I had seen a trailer for a movie she did. I think it was called Arch Enemy. And I just was impressed visually. It looked like something that was sort of it fit my style. And so I looked into some of her other work, and I had added her to a list of other names I'd put together over the years. I can't remember what publication, if it was an American cinematographer or something like that, but they had named her one of 10 cinematographers to watch. It's a big deal. And so when the time came, generally I would ask one of the producers to start, if you could, reach out to their agents, and I could start talking to people, and these are the people I'm most interested in, and they would do that and see who's available and who's not. And then I can't remember the exact number of people I spoke to, the exact number of cinematographers. It was a decent amount, more than 7 or 8. And but we had it was all over Zoom. We were in the middle of COVID still. We had a very long Zoom conversation where it's those kind of great conversations where first you're sort of talking about what are your influences, what are your that, and by the end you're just enjoying a great conversation. And in the end, it had come down to her and a few other women who I was a fan of, and they were all excellent. But something about Helena, we were really, really, really in tune with what we both thought the movie should be. She had some really interesting references she would make. And my references would always tend to be a little more mainstream, and she would be talking about some avant-garde Russian filmmaker, and that's a hole in my game, and she was going to fill it, and I loved that. And so that's how I asked the producers to told them that's who I wanted. Please don't botch the deal, and because she's great. And so that's how we.
I imagine what he said was, "Don't fuck it up. I really want to work with
and
her."
During the time that you knew Ms. Hutchins, did you get to know anything about her background?
Yeah. I mean, she has this backstory that you don't forget when you hear it, right? I mean, she was born in the Ukraine, and but she'll tell you, she says, "Oh yeah, I grew up in this naval submarine base in the Arctic Circle," and you don't hear that generally every day.
No, you can't approach. They're allowed to talk about the victim, counsel, and they're talking about the victim, and he's talking about all the things that he respected about her and why he wanted to work on the movie. You are allowed to talk about the victim in this case. This case is not about Alec Baldwin. It's not just about your client. And getting to the background of that is really, really helpful. So we're going to zoom past. We have reached the limit of our zooming. So let me make sure we are on live court real quick. And I think we've reached the end of the zooms and are now caught up in real time. So I'm going to leave that up. We are now on
Souza,
real time.
Without saying anything that
Look at us all caught up.
Hutchins said to you, can you give the jury an idea of the kind of education and training that Ms. Hutchins received after she came to the United States?
Yeah, I know that she had spent a little time at the University of South Carolina. It's my understanding that's where her and Matt actually met.
I did not have
her husband.
I did not have one degree of separation to South Carolina on my list
I know
here.
she did the program at UCLA. I think it was the producer's program. I know she did the master's program at AFI, American Film Institute.
And do you recall when she completed the master's program through AFI?
Oh, that I'm not sure. Gosh.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm not sure when. I know she did. She was very, very interconnected with AFI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did
What
her
is AFI,
background and
Chad?
training, did that go into part of your decision to bring her onto this project?
Yeah, it's, I'm always impressed when AFI is a prestigious name in our business. I think it's
Thank you,
always
Chad.
impressive to me when someone goes through there. I
The
think
American Film Institute. The lawyer
as
didn't
a
ask, so I asked the chat.
cinematographer, I
Chad's
think that's doubly
best
impressive.
lawyer
Just
around.
because if you look at the numbers in this business, they're sort of atrocious in that regard. But yeah, I think and that coupled with the work I'd seen from her, and just she was very keen to do a Western, as I think all filmmakers are. Because
Really?
it's just a really interesting thing to do visually.
Okay.
And but I think between those things, between her work and her her background, I think she was kind of a no-brainer.
Is it bad that my visual aesthetic is 90s music video?
At some point, did you and Ms. Hutchins come to Santa Fe to begin pre-production work on Rust?
Oh,
We
Chad
did,
is the
yes.
research attorney.
Approximately when was that?
Oh gosh, let me think back about this.
'Cause Chad is May.
We filmed in.
Christo,
sorry,
that's
don't
what I
wanna
was
conflate it
thinking.
with the second go round.
I was thinking
we
of
were
the
filming in
band.
October that time, so I believe we would have come out, if I go back, September in. I guess it would have been late August. Yeah, or the tail end of August, or beginning.
I'm very interested to hear what Joel Souza has to say, but I have to point out that Lori in the chat said Chat EDB wins again. Chat EDB is superior to Chat GPT every day of the week. And B, I think we're going to get a lot more background here, which is going to be helpful background on the filming process. But what we really need is what happened in the church. But I imagine she'll get to that at the very end of his testimony. But yeah, Chat EDB beats Chat GPT every single day.
September, but yeah, we both
we
came out
have
around the same time.
18,000
She came from
humans.
Los Angeles. I live up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I came from there. And I think she might have gotten there either the day before or after me.
Can you explain to the jury how other members of the crew are hired? What goes into hiring camera people and armorers and prop assistants?
Sure, I think
first part is all you need.
the department heads will sort of pick their team. Like for the camera team, Helena would put the word out. She'd go to people she'd worked with before. She would, through the union maybe, or
That's how this whole industry
basically
works.
collect
Shoulder
resumes of
taps
people,
and
collect
conversation.
recommendations from people. She would make the choices of who she would hire on a camera team. In terms of the production designer is the head of the art department, so he would pick his prop master, his set decorator, his and then those people would also then pick armorer and prop assistants and people like that. The department heads would generally sort of hire their own, or at least interview and then recommend the hires to the production office.
Okay. And approximately, if you recall, when did you first meet Ms. Gutierrez?
I want to
In
know
person,
who recommended
I had
her
a phone
more.
call with her before I ever met her.
I would like more conversation around that.
One of the folks from the production office, I can't remember if it was Gabby or Roe, had told me that they had found an armorer. They told me that it was Hannah Gutierrez Reed.
We found an
I
armorer
had
who's not objecting to also
Of
working
course,
as
heard of
props
Fel Reed.
assistant.
In the business, who hasn't? And so they told me that they had found her.
He said, I of course
so
knew Fel Reed, her dad.
I was keen on having what's called a show and tell, where you would basically have all the weapons that would be used for the movie more or less laid out on tables, and you would then match the cast up with what looks best for their characters.
I only know
and
anything
makes
about
the most
this
sense story-wise.
because of the
And
Office
so
Ladies podcast.
I wanted to have that, and so the production had her call me, and she introduced herself to me, and we spoke over the phone the first time then. And then a few days later, I can't remember exactly how much, it was a day later, a few days later, I met her in person at the show and tell, and then she was training people that day as well.
I don't know. Chad, I saw a lot of you asking to
And-
move the closed caption. Let me know if you can see it. I was trying to keep it on
At
the other
some
side
point,
so visually it was easier to
I
see.
presume that filming
I can
begins
change
and a lot of work begins. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the pre-production itself is an enormous undertaking as well. But we eventually got to our first day of filming, yes.
I want to ask you a couple of, prior to your work on Rust, had you worked on any other movies where there were real firearms and an armor?
You just grab it on screen.
The movie I had done before Crown Vic was a movie about police. And
I was gonna
although
guess
most
that
of the
based
movie
on the
was
title.
spent with the two characters driving in a car, so they didn't have anything on them. There were a few occasions we had some armorer days where, there were police weapons and then an armorer.
The expert called those day
that.
player days.
Do you recall how many days you got to experience an armor on set?
Maybe 3 or something like 3 or 4. It wasn't an enormous amount of days, but we
Okay.
didn't have. There was not a lot of gunfire on that movie, frankly.
Okay.
There's a lot of them driving
Um,
around in a Crown Vic, it sounds like. Maybe hence the title.
Can you give us an idea of
It won't let me change the color of the closed captions. I will mess with
what
it
your
when we take a
focus
break.
is in a given day on the set?
Yeah, it's mostly about like who you work with and interact with most. My most direct interactions are with my director of photography, and there's a byproduct of that, the camera team. But you're also talking to wardrobe and production design a lot because you're moving from set to set. They're asking you, is this right? Is this okay? Is this okay? So in general, I would work, my script supervisor is always there with me as well.
Mamie Mitchell.
But in general, you work with the creative departments. You are spending a ton of time with your cast, with your actors. You're blocking the scenes out. You're walking them through their performances. You're sort of getting on the same page together.
Are you largely focused on the behavior of the armorer?
No.
Not his job, really.
No, I mean, you see them when they are
busy
there at
directing
set.
a movie.
But no, I don't generally interact with the armorer during during the course of the day on set.
Because they're supposed to just
Okay.
do their job.
And let me ask you, after the show and tell and the training that you described, did you reach out to Ms. Gutierrez and compliment her?
Well, there was a day on, so I think, if memory serves, I think the first day of gunfire on the movie was day 3, because that was sort of, that day was on my mind from Jump Street with this production, because it was our biggest day of the movie. It was, just to give you sort of an idea of the scale of the day, it was not just, I mean, we had, a large part of the day was there was an enormous shootout going on between these bad guys and good guys. I think 4 people on one side and 4 people on the other side. There's an enormous amount of stunt work that goes with that. You know, there's gunfire, there's the actors. But then before that, there's also, we were walking the characters through town, so the town was filled with background, which is what we call the extras who come. There were horses, there were wagons. It was an enormous day.
There was a lot of stuff.
And at the end of the day, we had made it. And it was a tough day. And when we have days like that, I generally like to go around and thank folks and congratulate people on doing a good job.
Like a empathetic boss?
If I texted her that day, it would have been because I guess I just didn't find her on set at the end of it. But the day came off, and I think, everybody had a big part in that. So
Good work, everybody.
Okay. And after that day,
job, people.
you were complimentary of her?
After that day?
Or on that day?
On that day, yeah.
And you were complimentary of the other folks on set that day?
Yeah. No, it's, I don't know if anyone's ever spent time on set, but it's
No.
quite a thing to see. The people, it's just a lot of professionals doing some pretty amazing stuff, so.
Okay, great.
She's like, and?
Can you explain to the jury what Video Village is and specifically what it was on the set of Rust?
So Video Village is basically a sort of large awning or tented area. There'll be a lot of chairs inside there for cast to sit, producers to sit. There's generally a chair for me, which
Great.
I should have used and never did. I just tend to stay on my feet all day.
You never sat in the
And then there
cool
will be
director
monitors
chair?
that are basically a feed
He's so
to the cameras that
personable
we're using.
on stand.
So you can watch what the camera sees essentially from what they call Video Village.
So
you can
personable.
watch the takes as we're doing them. Sometimes, as a director, you'll watch from Village. Sometimes you'll watch from set. I think every director has a different way they like to do it. For me, it's kind of a mix.
And inside Video Village, can you see what the camera sees when the cameras are not rolling?
Yeah, as long as the monitors are up. Sometimes you're dealing with wireless transmitters and things, and it seems like on any set I've ever been on, people are constantly kind of running behind the monitors and fussing with cables and transmitters and things, and monitors not down, and then it's up, and then it's down. But in general, yeah, you
all
can
the
see
time.
whatever the camera sees. If the camera's
and
powered
I'm a
on,
YouTuber.
you can see what's going on.
That's interesting. So
Based on
they're trying to get to safety on this set, but if the monitors were up at Video Village and the cameras were turned on in the church while they were blocking, you would have been able to see it, and you would have been able to see what's happening in the church, even if they weren't rolling film. And they were trying to clarify that earlier with somebody and did not.
on
So he's
your
now clarified that point.
experience as the director of Rust,
They did not see it because Video Village was down.
was Video Village a place that you would frequently encounter Ms. Gutierrez?
No, you don't ever see it. Armorers are never in Video Village. They should be next to set.
Where the guns are.
Can you recall a single time that you saw Ms. Gutierrez in Video Village?
No.
All right.
The shooting was not recorded
And-
because they weren't rolling. Things leading up to it were.
Can
but
you
they
tell
weren't
the jury
rolling.
generally what your understanding was of where the armor is supposed to be if the actors are using their prop guns that are real? They're real
Mm-hmm.
revolvers that they're using as prop. Where's the armor supposed to be?
Are you testifying?
Basically
Are you asking a
off
question?
camera.
Is
I mean,
that
there's-
compound?
I mean, there's crew on set, so you'll sort of behind the camera,
is
there are
compound.
grips, there's the operators, there's sort of the people that are sort of where the camera can't see them, and you would generally expect the armor to be just sort of standing off screen, ready to hand
them
or
back.
retrieve when we're starting or finishing the weapon.
Okay.
Yeah.
were you ever under the impression,
Chad, I see he does kind of look like Billy Bob Thornton.
experience, that it would be appropriate for the armorer to leave real weapons with actors and then leave the area?
No, that wouldn't be what an armorer should do, at least in my experience.
Okay. And
He knows
can you give
he knows
the
it's
jury
coming.
an idea
He knows
of,
that the shit that he has to
at the
talk
beginning
about
of
is
the filming
coming.
of Rust,
And you can
did you even
see
understand
it.
what a dummy round was?
Not really. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of exposure to that kind of stuff before. I wonder, I don't exactly have a clear memory of it. I have a feeling the first time I heard the word dummy is after everything happened, to be frank.
You got shot. Of course, you
Okay.
don't have a clear
Yeah.
memory of everything. I get it.
I'm just wondering, during the time that you were the director on Rust, and to be clear, you are directing the scenes.
Yes.
So when the actors are
just got
outfitted
question by
with their
question.
revolvers and they're preparing to film the scene,
Compound.
you're the person that's there directing. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm talking it through with the actors, yeah.
Did you have an opportunity to see Ms. Gutierrez engage in her armor duties by providing firearms to actors or retrieving those firearms?
Yeah, I remember times seeing her do that. I do, yes.
Was there ever a time, well, let me ask you this, when we talk about how the armorer and the assistant director are you familiar with the way that the armorer and the assistant director are supposed to do a safety check of guns?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I have a pretty good understanding of it.
Okay. And what is your understanding of whether or not the armorer should load the gun in the presence of the
Her
assistant
questioning
director?
style is
Ooh, to be honest, that I don't really know.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's supposed to come to that moment loaded or if they're supposed to do it in that exact moment. That I'm not certain.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever see Ms. Gutierrez load a gun with dummy rounds in the presence of the actor or the assistant director?
I mean, gosh, nothing that really sticks out to me. I remember times when she would call out what was in it, but I don't remember really seeing her specifically putting things in.
Okay. Do you ever recall any safety checks where you saw Ms. Gutierrez shake rounds before loading them into the gun?
I never saw anyone shake around, no.
Thank you.
which may be kind of wild, or may just because that's not where he was, because that's for the first
What is
AD
your
in Hannah to do.
understanding of the
It might just-
overall?
It might be bad, it might be circumstance.
I would say, for lack of a better word, the overall amount of power that the armorer has over the firearms and ammunition on the set.
The answer should be all.
Well, I would say that specifically since it's such a safety matter and it's such a specialized matter, that there's really no one on set that should be able to override the armor in terms of the
Oh.
weapons, the ammunition, how they're handled, anything. What the armorer says goes.
And would that include the star actor and producer, Mr. Baldwin?
It would include anybody, yeah.
Okay.
But sir, is Mr. Baldwin kind of a dick? Nobody's asked this question yet. I need this question to be asked. I really do.
I want to ask
Was
you a little
Mr.
bit
Baldwin difficult
about
on
the
set?
COVID
Question mark.
protocols that were
That's what
in
they're all
place
getting
on the
at.
set of Rust. We understand that this was during COVID. Tell us how that
However-
worked.
Yeah, it was during COVID.
I will say, even if actors are dicks on set, somebody has to put their foot down. And that's what they're all alluding to. But somebody has to put their foot down.
We would come to set in the mornings. You'd get in a big line. They would have the people doing the testing. There was, I believe, they had like a trailer there that where there was a specific kind of testing you would do that would be more like the quick nasal swab, and then there was
Oh,
kind
the
that would take
COVID
longer to
precautions.
process. They would do both. People were with mask, particularly indoors, were encouraged to. I think everyone tried to be extremely careful, and to my knowledge, we never had a positive test on the show.
Okay. Was there any kind of a requirement on the set that people needed to leave, let's say, the church or another indoor filming area to reduce the number of people inside due to COVID?
Nothing I ever heard of. No, there was the people who had to be there had to be there. So
Carla in the chat said, "Sir, why did you call Mr. Baldwin a motherfucker when he shot the gun after you called cut?" I want that question to come up so badly, Carla. That's a better question. That's the better question. Thank you. Because chat is Bay. And y'all, I don't know. I don't care what you're going to do.
Let me ask
Please
you.
stop prefacing everything.
You wrote the script, so are you familiar with all of the scenes that were to be recorded in this movie?
Yep.
You understand now what dummy rounds are used for.
I missed 1.25
yeah,
already.
Essentially, you put them in so that if there's a close-up on the gun, there is something that is in the gun that is inert, that can't do anything, but looks like there's a bullet in the gun.
To the best of your recollection,
back to
was there
singing Chicago.
ever
I'm sorry,
a
chat.
close-up scene
The gun.
of an actor or a stuntman loading or unloading the lever-action rifle that was assigned to Mr. Baldwin?
No, there was not.
Based on your understanding of the scenes in the script, can you think of any reason that dummy rounds would have been placed inside that rifle for filming?
No, I think if my memory serves, I believe the only thing that rifle was going to be used for it was there's one scene where it fires and accidentally kills somebody, but we were never going to have the rifle fire in any way because it's an underage actor in that scene holding the weapon, and so we were just going to CGI.
Just to clarify what he says, I'm sorry for the. Hold on.
The gun blast.
Okay.
I didn't want to dirty pause for Mr. Souza. What he just explained was there's only one scene in the movie where one of the shotguns goes off, and that's an accidental fire, but it's an accidental fires at the hand of the child actor, because the plot of the movie is that the child actor accidentally shoots someone and then runs to Baldwin, his grandfather, and then they go on the run together, and then law enforcement is chasing them. That is the plot of the movie. The grandfather, Baldwin's character's last name is Rust. The full character name is Harlan Rust, and that is the plot. But it might be why Hannah was asking to do gun training for the 11-year-old, because the 11-year-old would have to handle the gun and would have to maybe move like the gun shot. And I think you can train a child in holding the gun and talking about body movements without ever shooting a gun. So it's very odd, again, that we are in an accidental shooting trial on a movie, and the plot of the movie is about an accidental shooting. Yes. So that the kid did have to hold one of the rifles on set, and that's what he's explaining here, that they were going to CGI it.
And when you say CGI,
just computer effects. You put a fake gunshot in digitally in the special effects process.
Yes, when I said this trial is the ending of the movie Rust, I was not all the way joking.
hypothetically, if that rifle was going to be used for actual firing, would it have blanks in it and not dummies?
Your Honor, object.
Approach.
Grounds. Let's see. I've paused a couple times. Does that mean we can fast forward through all of this? I think it does. Darn it, now we're caught up to real time. But that's okay, because now I get to answer questions in the chat. Chat, you are, as always, Bay. Here, we'll make some YouTube disclaimers, because there's almost 20,000 of you here. First, do the YouTube-y things. Go ahead, like, subscribe. I'm a lawyer. I do legal commentary. Been a lawyer for a long time. Been a trial lawyer for a long time. Don't do trial work anymore. Do YouTube court. If you want to keep in touch with everything I am covering, next week's podcast is going to be all about the Bravo sphere, the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. Free app, iOS, Android. Keep you in the loop. Free to you. Set your app notifications. Don't miss a moment of trial. Don't miss a moment of anything.
To be clear,
It's
Can
never
you
clear
think
when you
of
say that.
any reason,
It's never is.
and I mean in terms of cinematography and what you understood about the filming of the scenes, that rifle needed to have dummy rounds?
You wouldn't see them. I mean, dummies are purely visual. If they go into the rifle, they disappear into the rifle, so you wouldn't see them, so you wouldn't need dummies in the rifle.
Thank you, sir.
Hannah did talk about dummying up the rifle, and one of the rifles
I'm going
jammed
to take
because
you
it had
to
the wrong size
October 21st of
dummy round in it.
2021. Can you explain to the jury how that day began?
Yeah, we got there early as we always did. It was still dark.
I could never work in movies. They have like 4 a.m. call times
Gaffer
and
was
shit.
waiting there for me with mittens and a hat for both me and Helena, as he always did.
And who was the gaffer?
Serge Svetnoy.
Serge is
And
Serge the gaffer was standing right in the room. I covered Serge's civil lawsuit. Serge and Helena were very, very close. But you can A, we're gonna get to the emotion. I can feel it coming. But B, he's talking about that day and the little memories before he got shot of, it was cold in the morning and Serge the gaffer is laying out gloves and mittens. We're going to go through the entire day of what happened up to this shooting, but you can already start to hear it in his voice. So just so you know, and that's appropriate.
And
It's
we had
an
realized
emotional
that,
thing.
I think it was 6 members of the camera team were going to be leaving. And so we knew we were going to not get started really. It was very early. I think Helena knew that they were going to have to start finding other local folks that were available for work to get us there. And so things started a little later that day than they generally did. And once, I don't remember exactly the number of people that were brought in after the other team had left.
I'm gonna stop you right
Sure.
there. In your experience in the film industry, is it unusual for this kind of a disagreement to occur between production and the camera team?
Where people walk off.
I haven't had it happen on one of the movies I've directed, but I know other folks who have had that happen, yes.
And
Where people walk off set.
were you particularly concerned about whether the cameramen that quit were disgruntled or had any malintent towards the filming?
I wasn't concerned about anybody having any malintent. I think there was a decent amount of acrimony between them and the production office and producers over some things that have been sort of going back and forth. I think they sort of, as they should, they tried to sort of, keep that thing away from me. But I hear things, what's going on? You want people to be happy. You want people to feel good about what they're doing. So.
Because that produces a better movie. And it's a better way to human.
Did you think that the camera crew's decision to leave was somewhat reasonable?
Huh. No objection.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I wouldn't want to answer for them. I knew it was going to put us behind the 8 ball a little bit, but then
It
again,
feels weird 'cause it asks for
people
speculation.
have their concerns. People have bills to pay. They have their own needs. At the end of the day, they did what they did.
Because they felt they needed to, apparently.
When they left, I went and shook hands, and I had no hard feelings, and I hope they had no hard feelings toward me, and said I hope we would work together again, because frankly, they were pretty darn good at what they did.
Okay.
But I think, again, I'm not 100% privy to all the goings on there, but I think people have their concerns and the things they need to do. I think they felt they did what was right. So.
He respects them, and he's not going to throw them under the bus because
So
he
you get
respects
to
their
set,
decision.
you understand that you're going to lose the
Respect
camera
goes a
crew,
long
and I think
way.
we left off where
Yeah.
Ms. Hutchins was going to try to fill some of those roles.
Yeah, I think between Helena and I think the production office, they would start putting out some feelers in an urgent manner that we need, And so then at some point, some folks came. I don't know
urgent
exactly how
is
many.
an
but there were 3 or 4.
understatement.
We were going to be down a camera that day because one of the folks that left was the A camera operator, and so we knew we were going to be operating under only one camera for the rest of the day. Which, I mean, sometimes you do only use one camera when you're filming, but that's going to slow you down because sometimes when you're filming, you can have 2 cameras catching something at once, and now you're going to need to do that twice. So it's
You're going to have to move the
time.
camera, right?
And so, yeah, we were sort of gearing up and girding ourselves for that and talking about our plan for the day, how we were going to go about this. Because it was already, schedule-wise, it was already going to be a difficult day.
I hope she
So
asked
what
him.
was the plan
I
for the
hope
day?
she asks if they finished
The plan for
movie.
me, as I saw it, I
wanna
I
hear
sort of
what
took
he has to say.
Dave, our first assistant director, aside, and Helena, and just said, look, I think we all understand when you look at this day of schedule, we're not going to make this. This is not going to happen.
Me every
what
day.
I don't want to do is start short-changing the scenes that we have in front of us. What we're going to do is we are going to do the scenes that are in front of us. We're going to do them properly. We're going to work our way through. And whatever's left at the end of the day, we can't control that. That's left at the end of the day, and we'll have to figure out tomorrow. But today, we're going to do what we can.
Okay.
There's something about
if you
today.
recall,
Today, we're gonna
approximately what time were you able to get filming underway?
It might have been like 9-something. I seem to remember 9-something because that's, you're getting going a couple hours late at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you recall, what were the first what were the scenes that were filmed in that session before lunch?
Yeah, we were sort of tucked into a corner of the town. It's a scene where the head lawman in the movie, character's name is Wood. He brings a few other lawmen into town, so it's a decent sized undertaking in that you've got.
I'm sorry. Is Jensen Ackles' character's name Wood? Is that who we're at?
Again, you've got animals.
Can we
I think we had a mule or a donkey there, and some other animals. We had horses, wagons, a lot of extras.
The chat needs you
And
to
we have these
orient
two
the
characters riding
storytelling
into town
around
at
Jensen.
a decent pace, and then coming in. It was essentially it's before a scene and after a scene, if that makes sense. We were filming the first part of a scene where they ride into town. At a different time, we had already filmed the scene where they would walk in to have this business they were dealing with. And then
Amy,
we were
good to
filming
see
again
you,
different
friend.
scenes.
Thank you for the 5 gifted
And
memberships.
during the filming of those scenes, were there any close-up shots of revolvers that would have made
The
the use of dummy
prosecutor,
rounds
yep.
appropriate that you can recall?
We did no close-ups in those. It was wide versions of them riding into town and then getting off. It wasn't a lot of shots, to be honest, because you have something that big and pretty, you sort of tend to back up a little bit and show it off. And then when they were leaving, it was the character, I'll tell you exactly what it was. His foot goes into the holster. We come up with camera to reveal him getting into his
love
horse
him
and onto his horse and 2 men behind him, and then they ride out. That starts at what's sort of more termed as a medium shot and then becomes a wide shot as they leave.
What I love with this,
And were there any other
what I
scenes
love with
that
Joel
were...
Souza as a witness is he very much describes things with his hands. I imagine that's how he does it on movie set too, to show you what he's talking about. It's very engaging. I think it's probably his natural style, but it's very helpful as he's describing how everything's doing that he's showing you with his hands. He doesn't seem nervous at all. This is going to be emotional testimony, but he's so relaxed. He's just such a likable witness. I'm not surprised they left him till the end. Maybe I would have kept him till last.
Filmed
He's so
prior to
darn
lunch, other than that
likable.
one.
After we finished on that end of town, we moved up the road to the church and filmed a good amount of interior stuff in the church.
And the scenes inside the church, did those involve Mr. Baldwin?
Yes.
And if you know, were those scenes filmed in
Evie-
such close proximity that dummy rounds may be advisable?
Evie, if your notifications are going to spam, get the
A
app.
few shots, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and for other characters too.
Tina, thank
Because
you.
we'd
for the
also
gifted
filmed
memberships.
the marshals coming in. Essentially, the scene is the young boy helps his grandfather in. We filmed that a few times. He sits him down in a church pew, and then the boy runs out to get help.
And let me stop you.
Yeah.
The grandfather of the young boy...
I'm sorry, is Alex. The character's name is Harlan Rust.
And that's Mr. Baldwin's
Yeah,
character.
and the boy his character's called Lucas.
Okay.
So Lucas brings Rust in. Rust has been shot in a previous scene. He's bleeding. The boy's going to go try to find help. He runs out. Then the lawmen come in, which we filmed. Them coming in, fanning out around the church, talking to the Rust character, and the Rust character slumped over in the pew. So we filmed most of, if not all of the pieces of the lawmen coming in, looking that way. We filmed a good portion of the pieces of the characters, the Rust and Lucas coming in before that.
Okay.
We did that all before lunch.
Okay. And after the filming of those scenes,
Northwest asked in the chat, has the jury heard he's been shot yet? Yeah, they've discussed it a couple times with a lot of witnesses that he's been shot, and the fact that the bullet that was identified as live came from his shoulder when he had surgery.
what happened?
Yeah, now
After
we
the
know the
filming
whole
of
plot of
that
the
part of
movie.
the scene, it was time for lunch. They called lunch.
When they call lunch, where do you go?
We had everyone tends to get in the vans and go back to base camp. I remember
Because it's like a quarter mile away.
Alec was still there as people were clearing out, and he and I and Helena talked a little bit about what was still to come, because we were going to pick literally right up where we left off after lunch. And people would go to get in the pass vans. It wasn't very far, but there was a decent sized hill they would have to go over, so they would just sort of, it would be faster to drive them in vans over to where we would have lunch.
Okay. And what happened when lunch was over?
Lunch was over, everybody migrates back to the church, and you pick up where you left off.
Were you inside the church
After lunch.
immediately after lunch was over?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you stay inside the church the entire time between when lunch ended and when the shooting occurred?
No. No, I at a certain point went outside of the church.
And why were you doing that?
So when we were setting up the camera angle, we were talking about what the shot was supposed to be. And forgive me if I over-explain this, but the scene is very tense, right? And so you achieve that through editing and camera angles. And so you want to see Rust sitting there. Is he dead? Is he alive? The men coming closer. They're ordering him to give up. And then you cut to close-ups, and you're cutting from the character to the lawmen back and forth. And the first shot was supposed to essentially be the first moment we might realize that Rust is not, in fact, as injured as we might have thought. And so it was going to be a close-up on the weapon coming out of the holster. And so we talked about that a little bit. Helena and I had talked, and there's Reed there, Serge was there. They're talking about the lighting. And then at a certain point, it's time to set the camera angle.
The lighting in the
It's not a
church
rehearsal yet. You're just sort of what they
is
call auditioning
beautiful.
the shot. Like, do you like this camera angle?
Beautiful.
Okay.
And so once they do that, the camera was on the dolly, which is a gigantically heavy piece of equipment, and it was in the middle of an aisle between pews.
Ross
So the pews were here. and the dolly's
Heisenberg,
in
who
the
we all
middle.
quite liked, was the
And when you're in a
camera
tight
A
space
dolly
like that, I
grip,
generally,
or
when they
dolly
start
gaffer,
moving the gear
dolly
around, I
grip.
feel like I'm in the way. And so I got out of the way, went outside, and I figured, well, we still had one monitor. There was no village anymore that day, or that I'm aware of. Not in the traditional sense that there would be monitors lined up, but there was still a monitor that I could see the camera through.
Where was that monitor?
That was outside of the church. I don't remember if they had it on a stand or if it was on a cart. It was not a big one, but they were trying to get image up on the monitor having come back from lunch. And
So outside
after a
where-
time, the image was just not coming up.
Hannah was.
And
but
so
it
I
wasn't
decided,
working.
before they get too far afield, if they're sort of setting this up in a way that I think isn't going to work, I would like to at least stop them and say, no, let's move it here. And so that's when I went back inside to have a look.
So, at any point in time, did you see Ms. Gutierrez enter the church with the firearm?
No, it wasn't. I wasn't aware of her coming in or leaving.
Somebody's phone
The church
binked.
was, there's an enormous amount going on. A million voices, it feels like. The special effects guys are rigging things up in the roof for debris for later on. When the shooting starts, there'll be debris falling down, and there are people working the lights. There are people moving the cameras. There's a lot going on, and so I didn't really
In a
register
small
that.
space.
Do you have any idea who provided Mr. Baldwin his revolver for the scene?
No, I mean, just beyond in a general sense about who's supposed to hand it off, but no, I didn't see anybody give it to him.
I wanted to know that.
At some point, does Mr. Baldwin get his revolver?
Damn it, I wanted to know that.
I mean, he clearly had it. The interesting thing, I never saw him with it. I mean, he clearly had it because of what happened, but when
He
I went in
clearly
to look
has
at to see what was going on with the camera angle, I remember there's sort of a big group kind of hovered around where he would be. He would be sitting in the pew. I just couldn't see him. I'm not the tallest guy in the world. And so what I wanted to do was get up behind
Sir.
Helena to try to sneak a look over her. There's a little tiny monitor on the side of the camera.
Sir, you just
to at
couldn't
least see
be
that,
any more
to see what
likable
it
as a
was looking like,
witness.
But I never even got a look at that.
You've
Okay.
described
So
things so
explain
well.
to us when you're going.
You've told
when you're
us
going
about
into
your
the church
movie.
and why and what you do and what happens.
You've told us about your friend
So
Helena.
I went inside again to try to see what the angle was. There were a lot of voices. I heard Alex's
20,000
voice.
people want to give you a hug.
I heard Helena's voice. Everyone's sort of talking at once. I don't
Be a lot of hugs, but
have a clear memory of how long I was standing behind her. I know I got up behind her just to try to see on the monitor, and there was an incredibly loud bang that was not like the half and quarter loads you hear on a set. Those are sort of,
good description.
they're loud poofs and pops. This was deafening.
It was a bang.
And it felt like somebody had taken a baseball bat to my shoulder. I remember that distinctly, and sort of stumbling back and shouting. I don't remember exactly what I said.
Were
I
you
would
able to
imagine
see
it would
Ms.
be in
Hutchins
the
at that time?
world of what the fuck.
I did. I remember sort of stumbling back, and I either fell to my knees or I was sitting, and I distinctly remember her being lowered to the ground. People had her sort of by either side. And I still didn't quite know what had happened. Nothing made sense. I remember initially thinking, had she been startled by it? And they were sitting her down as a result, and then I saw the blood on her back.
And to the best of your recollection, what happened after that?
It got very chaotic. I remember them laying me down. I remember them laying her down next to me, although we were sort of facing in opposite directions. My head was this way, her head was that way. I remember a lot of panic.
Yeah. We've caught up to real time. Hold on. Let me pause and restart because we were on 1.25. So,
A lot of panic.
which is going to make it harder. Truly.
I still just couldn't figure out what had happened.
He's an excellent
just-
storyteller
I thought, was there something that had been stuck in the barrel that came out? But
because he's a director.
just nothing made sense.
And we've heard that from multiple
I
witnesses.
remember-
Nothing made sense. How did this happen?
Our dolly grip, Ross,
We love
coming
Ross.
to sort of grab me and trying to call me, and then Matt Hemmer came in, and between the two of them, I remember they sort of tended to me and were pulling up and just trying to find out where there was a hole.
Do you recall, Mr. Souza, at any point in time during that general time after the gun went off, having any kind of an interaction with Ms. Gutierrez?
I remember at one point looking up and her standing there with another person or a few other people, and she looked distraught. And I remember her saying, I'm sorry, Joel," and I remember somebody just screaming at her, and they just ushered her out.
And that's consistent with what she said
Okay.
as well.
At some point in time, were you taken from the scene?
Yeah,
Yeah, he wrote this movie too. Yep.
You know, it's funny, when I hear later about how long we laid there, it felt like 5 minutes. And I remember
Trauma's weird, sir.
looking over and her looking back at me. And she had the biggest brown eyes I've ever seen. And then, but I don't remember who they took out first. They put me on some kind of stretcher and rolled me out.
And where did they take you?
They told me they were going to take me to they just said they were going to take me to the hospital, and I kept begging them to take me where she was,
His
but they said they
testimony's
couldn't, and that they would later.
getting to Hannah as well.
And they eventually took me to, I think it's Christus St. Vincent, I think that's what it's called, in Santa Fe.
And when you were at the hospital,
He is doing such a good job of holding
did you
it
have
together,
an
and he is
understanding
trying.
that you had
But
been
his testimony has
actually
definitely
shot
gotten to
by a
Hannah.
bullet?
No. I mean, I knew something got me, but
It didn't. He didn't
they kept
understand.
they kept talking about this bullet, and
You're like, I'm on a movie set.
could not compute for me. I just kept saying, "You don't understand." No. This was a movie set. That's not possible. You don't get it. And they kept saying, No. It is. And I just keep insisting, you don't understand, because this is not possible. It's just not possible that there's a live round. It's not. It just can't. And then they eventually maybe grew tired of my protesting about it, because they showed me the X-ray of my back, and there was a very large bullet in it.
They're like, sir.
Okay. And sir, do you know whether Ms. Gutierrez was inside the church at the time that the gun went off?
I don't know.
In your experience, would
If
you
I'm
have
the
had an
prosecutor, I'm using
expectation
his
that
words at
she
closing.
would have been in the church?
Yeah, the armor would be where the gun is.
At closing, I'm saying this shouldn't have been possible. It's a movie set. Absolutely.
I'll pass the witness.
I don't always like this prosecutor's style, but leading up to the most emotional part of the testimony and ending on the most emotional part of the testimony is good for the jury, it's good for the witness, and it makes the defense look like a jerk if he comes in hot and starts yelling at Joel Souza like he did with Ross. I
morning,
imagine
sir.
he's not going to yell at Joel Souza. Joel's
I
immensely
have a few questions
likable.
for you.
Sure.
So, Mr. Souza,
But it's a
I
good
think
strategy
before,
of leading that
You testified that
Storytelling.
before the Rust movie, your experience with firearms was on Crown Vic. Is that correct?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Okay, and that was a movie you directed,
I directed and wrote Crown Vic, yeah.
and you wrote that. Okay,
Yeah.
and that I think you said had a couple scenes involving firearms. Is that right?
Well, in where guns were fired, there wasn't, yeah, there were a few, yeah.
So you had an armorer on that set. Was that armor full time?
He was there for the days.
I'm going to try to
that
pull up some of the super chats
the
that aren't
guns
questions
were
to
gonna be
share
used or fired, yeah.
on screen.
Is that the only occasion you've ever worked on a set with an armorer?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it fair to say your experience with working with armorers was fairly limited prior
Up to that point, yeah.
Okay. So are you familiar with the SAG safety rules where if the armorer or prop master are not present, a responsibility falls on the AD?
I don't think I ever really reviewed the SAG rules.
Yeah, let's talk about what Dave Halls didn't do.
I don't think I would have been aware of what the procedure would have been if the armor wasn't there. I think my assumption was always that the armor was supposed to be there.
Okay, and you made an assumption, but if there's a SAG rule that indicates that responsibility then falls on the AD, are you aware of that?
Objection outside the
That's not a rule that I'm aware of. no.
objection
Okay.
foundation. He
So you have
stated he did not know.
reviewed the SAG rules with respect to
Asked and
armors
answered.
in general, or firearm safety in general.
Asked and
No, I'm
answered.
not a SAG member, so.
Okay.
But no, I haven't, no.
Wouldn't
Okay.
he be in the Directors
So-
Guild?
If
Isn't it the
in the
DGA
church
the
at that
directors
time,
do?
Ms. Gutierrez
Chad, I know a lot of
Reed
you
was
are in the
not
industry, but I
present,
think that's right.
And you don't remember?
Why didn't he know SAG
Okay.
rules? Because he's in the
But
Directors
Mr. Halls
Guild.
was. He was the first assistant
SAG's
director,
responsible for
correct?
SAG rules, and they have some
He was
set
the
for
first
that.
assistant director, yes.
Now, you don't remember, I think he said,
It's my understanding that there is a Directors Guild. There is. I have no idea what that noise was. There's a Directors Guild. There is SAG. SAG can have representatives on set from their union if need be. The Directors Guild is different. And then there's also IATSE that deals with a lot of the different members of the crew. So there's a whole bunch of, and the Writers Guild. Thank you, Chad. So there's a lot of different things. So the SAG rules wouldn't really be relevant to him. SAG deals with the actors. And if you guys want to hear more about SAG rules, I did an interview with my friend Scott Wyatt, who is an actor and voice actor who has a very, very long resume, though you will probably know him best from the Mighty Ducks movies. A while back, we did an interview talking about SAG on set, and he was talking about the regulations when he was doing like horseback riding in a Western movie and stuff like that. So if you're interested in talking about SAG, it's over there in that interview from a while back. Just look for my interview with Scott White. So he wouldn't be in SAG. I have no idea what that noise was. I'm just going to go with my hotel is haunted.
seeing
we're going
who
with-
handed Mr. Baldwin the firearm.
That's
Hotels make
correct.
noises.
And I think you said, sir, you don't remember Mr. Baldwin even having the revolver. You didn't see it. I mean, he had to have had it, but
I know he had it before lunch.
Yeah.
I know he had to have had it for obvious reasons, but I don't.
Yeah, 'cause
I
it
didn't see
fired
him
a bullet.
holding it in that. It never got to that.
okay. So before lunch, did you see who handed
Hannah
Mr.
wouldn't-
Baldwin the revolver?
Hannah wouldn't be SAG either.
No,
Hannah
I
would be
remember-
IATSE.
I remember at
whatever
some
union
point
she
before lunch
joins.
hearing Dave call out Colt Gun, but I don't remember who handed it to him.
Okay, and that's Dave Halls?
Yeah,
And Mr. Halls called out cold gun before lunch that you remember?
as I remember that, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Just Jeff.
Was the blocking done before lunch as well for that scene?
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on in that scene. We had sort of gotten to a certain point in it. What was coming next, we had not practiced before. What was coming next was essentially just picking up where we left off. That was what's called an insert. It was an insert shot.
Okay, sir, and this insert shot, this was going to be after lunch.
I'm really glad this
This was our
conversation
first
is
shot up
days
after
away
lunch.
from the weapon
Okay.
conversations.
And was this an insert shot of
With all of
an
the
extreme
cocking and
close-up
decocking?
on the hand as it's pulling from the
Because
holster?
we're not able to
Yeah,
recover.
it was sort of, what I had in mind was, again, I talked about it a little bit before, but you have this, the hand kind of coming out like this, pulling it, yeah.
And when you just demonstrated that, you had your hand coming across and pulling in front of you?
Correct.
Okay.
Because that's where his thing was up here, so it would have naturally been going that way.
And do you know whether from the script, whether
Marjorie,
that,
I'll just say trials are
firearm
like
was
watching
supposed to be
sausage be
pointed
made.
towards the camera?
Well, I mean, it's not a matter of the script. really. For that specific shot, it was literally just supposed to be the gun being pulled out sideways.
Okay, sir, and when you demonstrated that, you did not have your hand pointed forward.
No.
Okay. So
We're back
in
to
that extreme
Baldwin's.
shot, it was just
We're
supposed
back
to
to
be
Baldwin's
pulled out in
errors.
front. Just,
Right.
Okay.
It was very short.
Okay.
Baldwin went off script. The gun in this blocking was only supposed to come out of the jacket around the waist area. It was supposed to slowly be pulled across the waist area. It was never supposed to be pulled and pointed at screen. And that's what they are talking about. But it has nothing to do with whether Hannah loaded the gun in advance. It has everything to do with Baldwin's case about whether he was negligently operating a firearm. So let us continue.
And was that designed to be like an insert to build tension in the scene?
Yeah, you cut back and forth and back and forth. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I understand. So at the time that occurred, after lunch, when you're doing that extreme close-up scene, was that called a blocking?
Yeah, it's sort of blocking for camera. Yeah, to
My
see,
ADHD needs to wiggle.
You want to see
Give
where
me
the focus needs to be, and how it's going to look, which way the camera's going to be oriented, essentially. When I said auditioning the shot, it's essentially the same thing as the camera blocking for the shot.
So in essence, that scene is just setting up. There's not even filming going on at that point.
Correct.
Okay. So with regard to that, did you ever hear Mr. Baldwin insist on having his revolver for that scene?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Oh, okay. Were you aware that generally during the movie he liked to have his hero guns?
I don't think it's unusual for actors to like that thing. I mean, again, in hindsight, it would have been easy to sort of say focus on that and think about it. At the time, I don't know that I had a sort of a clear understanding of that or not.
I like my hero
I
props
still want to
too.
speculate.
My purses
Right,
make me feel
absolutely.
fancy.
So your knowledge of that kind of firearm and in that particular scene, at that time it wasn't very extensive.
Right.
Okay. So in that scene there's a blocking and it's just going to be an extreme close-up. You were paying attention to the camera, as I understand. You're trying to look at the monitor?
Right. I wanted to see what the angle was. But since the monitor wasn't up yet, I thought, well, I should go
couldn't
inside
see
and
it,
try to
right.
catch and look at it there, because
That
if
makes
it
sense.
doesn't fit what I need to come next, they're very specific pieces I need.
Okay.
And if it doesn't fit what comes next, we should stop. There was not a lot of time to waste that day, so.
Absolutely. The day started off behind.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that your attention was focused on trying to get the right kind of camera angle for that extreme close-up?
Yeah, because there's no real performance at play there. It's more of a technical exercise. It's just, here's what I need to happen in this close-up in the editing room so that I can get this to work.
So at that
Marjorie,
time,
thank
and
you so much
taking
for
it
the
back
super
to
chat.
that time,
And
you're
yes,
more
if Ross
focused on trying to get
Audiago
the
ever
scene set
watches
up.
this,
Your
we
focus is
appreciate
not on
him.
looking around to see if Miss Gutierrez
He
Reed
was
is in
trying
the
to
church.
do the right
Is that
thing.
fair?
And everyone
I'd say
else
that's
around
fair,
him
correct.
blocked
And
it.
so at the time, did it occur to you at all to look around and see if the armor is there, and if not, to semi-call her?
No, I wouldn't say that it did.
Okay. And because at that time there wasn't even going to be more than just pulling out of a holster, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So
I don't know how old Seth
you didn't
compares.
you didn't know she was in the church, so obviously you didn't hear anybody go get her or call her back in.
Like I said, there were so many voices going on. I'm just trying to focus on what I can focus on at that point.
Absolutely.
Which is getting the
You
shot.
described it, and I kind of got the picture in my head. It was a little bit, all kinds of things are going on at that moment. There's people trying to set up the cameras, and tell me if I'm wrong, or why don't you tell it in your words?
Well, there's just a lot of people moving in a lot of different directions. There's
It's the defense theory.
the special effects people hanging what are called poppers from the ceiling. There's what I talk about. During the gunfight, they will pop and then debris will come raining down. There are people
Nobody
positioning
explained the
lights. There are people
poppers.
moving cameras. There are
Thank you, Joel.
wardrobe people in and out. There are, there's just a lot. It's, and under normal circumstances, it's quite a thing to watch, frankly.
I also want to ask you on the long rifle, the Henry rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have much knowledge of how the Henry rifle works?
Beyond what I'd read about it when I was writing the script, no, I know it's a lever action, and that's what appealed to me in a visual sense. And
Right. It
but
would
beyond
look
that,
cool.
not really, no.
Okay.
He's like, the
Do you have
lever
much
action looks
experience in general
dramatic.
with knowing
Love
types
it.
of firearms, how they function?
No, outside of movies, I have nothing to do with guns.
Okay. Now, on that Henry rifle, there was one scene in the script where Mr. Baldwin's character is supposed to come out of the shack or whatever the structure is, and he's firing at the lawmen. You remember that, sir?
Right.
And did that involve his hero gun, the Henry rifle?
He was carrying it. He was not going to be firing it. It proved impractical.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Do you know that the Henry rifle is made such that there's a plunger on the bottom, and when the rounds are loaded, you can see or not see if rounds are in that rifle?
No, like I said, I'm not any kind of expert on a rifle.
Okay. A part of the armor's duties, would you agree with, there to be there also for if the particular weapon Mr. Baldwin's holding needs to look like it's loaded, that's their job. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. Because you got to have a realistic feel for the audience. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's the entire reason dummies exist.
Okay. And so if
It's like, this is the
if
point.
the Henry rifle, if you can see at the bottom whether rounds are loaded or dummy rounds are loaded or not, that would be something that would you would want the armorer to handle.
If it was required for the scene, yes.
Okay. And in that particular scene, Mr. Baldwin is going to confront these lawmen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
Now,
good to
with
see you in
regard
the
to
chat.
dummies,
Thank
I
you for
think
the
you said
memberships.
before this, before Rush, you weren't very familiar with dummies either.
I wasn't really familiar with the term of it. I think, I guess it's, I would have assumed that there was, if I'd watch a Western and you see something and they have a gun pointed and there's something at the end of there's something in the cylinders or whatever those are called. I think I would assume there's something in there. I wouldn't quite know what it is.
He's like, I didn't really think about
Yeah.
it.
And you talked about on the second go-round in your direct,
Michael,
you
welcome.
completed the rest filming?
We did.
And on that second filming, did you use wooden dummies?
I wouldn't even call them dummies
I'm
because
glad
they
he
didn't ever
asked.
get loaded into anything. When there was a situation where we had to match previous shots, like on a bandolier where somebody had
About
what
finishing
would
the
look like
movie.
bullets, the armorer on that go-round had made them out of wood and then painted them and tucked them into the bandoliers.
Okay.
Remember, this movie did get finished with the cinematographer's
And you know
husband as
that
an executive
the
producer
purpose
per the
of a
wrongful
dummy,
death
dummy round is
settlement.
to look very like a live round.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Joel Souza.
When it comes
the
to
chat loves
safety
you as a
on the
witness.
set, who is the
Chat
person
got vibes from other people.
in general that's
Great
responsible?
vibes from you.
Well, I can, in a general sense, I mean, the first assistant director is the safety officer on set.
Can you say that again?
But beyond that, I think it also, there's a set is generally a reel if you see something, say something, things. So everybody is responsible, to some degree, to try to make sure there's a safe work environment. In terms of our safety officer, generally the first AD is the safety officer.
And what you just said, and first AD is in charge of that. But if anybody on set sees something unsafe, they should say something.
Yes, I think an
And
example
they
would be
did.
if there's an extension cord that's not taped down, or there's something that someone could hit their head on or something. You want to try to head those things off. There are a lot of sharp corners on movie sets.
Now, ultimately, with regard to safety, the producers are where the buck stops. Would you agree with that?
I think the producers are the people who write the checks are generally where the buck stops on everything in life. I don't think a movie set is any different.
Facts.
One other question.
Accurate. Oh, we're back to real time. Sorry, as it does, YouTube gets cranky when I go from 1.25 back to normal speed. It always takes it a second. Give me 1 second to do that. I'm trying to keep us on time so we can break for lunch on time. So let me refresh real quick because it's giving me the business.
Confront Mr. Baldwin and tell Mr. Baldwin.
Oh, no, my sound's not gained. Hold on. So what he's talking about, as I've just messed up my own shot. What they're talking about is who's in charge of safety, and ultimately he's talking about how it's everybody's responsibility on set to see something, say something, down to if a cable's not taped down because somebody could trip, or if the corners on the core, if there's a light hanging unsafely, like everything, people have to speak up.
Conversations all told. Okay. But that wouldn't have been one of them.
Oh no, that sounds terrible. That does
And
not sound
Would you agree with me?
gained.
Mr. Baldwin has a fairly strong personality in that movie.
Sure. I think, yeah.
Now we're getting to the questions we all want to
We
know.
saw some clips on that. Finally, you
The defense just made a throwaway comment, which he really shouldn't be doing, but he made a throwaway comment. We saw some clips on that, but I wonder if he's going to actually ask, did you call Baldwin a motherfucker because he kept firing the gun?
mentioned that the day 3,
I really
you felt
hope so.
good about how that went, and it was an amazing team of professionals, I think you said, that pulled together and did a good job. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think we had a very strong crew.
And Miss Gutierrez Reed also performed very well that day.
Yeah, on that day I didn't take any issue.
Yeah.
I was happy with everybody.
Okay.
On
Right,
that
yeah,
day, I
I'm
didn't
just a
take
moment.
any issue. Wait, ask the question. Ask the question. Sorry, I'm pouring water. I didn't want it to be on the microphone. Ask the question. Go back through and ask the question about Baldwin and about rushing and about the rest of it. I spilled my water on my leg.
I have nothing further going.
Redirect.
I mean, the buck stops with
Just
the money
briefly, Mr.
people.
Souza.
They're not on set. Well, some of them were, but most of them weren't
Do
on
you
set.
recall a single scene that was going to be filmed in a movie where anyone was loading the rifle with ammunition?
No.
Do you recall a single scene in the movie that was going to be filmed?
Why does
where
this matter
anyone
so
was
much?
Cycling ammunition through the rifle.
No.
I'm waiting for her to tie this
I
together.
don't have anything further. Thank you.
I don't know why this matters so much.
You're
I,
excused, thank you.
I don't know if it's going to the
Next
armor.
witness.
I think it must
Can we
be.
approach real quick?
Yeah, but
If-
we're not taking a lunch break.
Can we approach real quick? The judge. Yeah, but we're not taking a lunch break. Like, we need to get you through. We need to get these trial days done. Joel, I know that some of Helena's family is in court. Some of her good friends are in court. So I imagine when Joel was looking over, that he was looking over at those that are close to Helena. So they've approached about the next witness. I'm going to answer some questions as best I can while they have approached. We're going to go through some of our super chats at all that have the questions. Mary said she performed well that day, as in did her job properly. That's not doing well. That's just the standard. Even so, she wasn't careful with the weapons. He was very clear to say, I didn't have issues with her performance that day. Set was a shit show. This trial is a circus. Verdict, who knows? Dawn, I don't disagree with you at all. So we'll see when we get to lunch. It's congratulations to all the members in the chat. A reminder to all of you that are new. Do the YouTube things, the like, subscribe, whatever YouTube stuff. But also, the Lawnerd app will keep you in the loop, especially when we get into Verdict Watch. It will keep you in the loop of when I'm going live. Those things can be very dynamic. I have travel coming up, not just this week, but next week, or this next coming week and the week after. So some of the dynamic schedules will be shifting, even though I try to go live in close proximity to court time. So LawnerdApp.com, free app. We built it for you so you could stay in the loop and don't worry about notifications getting lost to wherever. I'm going to answer as many questions as I can about this trial specifically. My voice is a little raspy. Vegas always makes me kind of dry. Happy at Heart said, but why are the key bosses offered immunity? I don't know if Sarah Zachery counts as a key boss. Based on everything we've seen, I don't know what the prosecution would have charged Sarah Zachery with at this point. There might be more information out there, but I don't see a strong charge. I'm very curious about Seth Kinney. I will be surprised if he's not the next witness. I was surprised with this last witness. But I'm very surprised with Seth Kinney, but I think the prosecution's theory is that the live rounds came from Hannah or came from somewhere outside of PDQ Arm and Prop based on the chemical analysis of those live rounds. Like the shoot loops, as Lyndon called them in the chat, are different than those like hockey puck disc loops. And so the hockey puck disc loops, I think, were the ones from PDQ, and the shoot loops are the ones that were on set and ended up firing it. So those are different. So it's interesting. Question, the authority structure on this set is super confusing. How can Sarah be both Hannah's supervisor and apprentice at the same time? Chris, I don't know. I'm not in the movie industry. It does seem weird. Walkie Talkie said, you get immunity, you get immunity. Everyone gets immunity except you, Hannah. Ultimately, Hannah was responsible for loading the weapons, which is why she's facing responsibility here. But if everyone else is responsible for other things, it's going to play in heavily to Baldwin's trial. And the state's talking about Baldwin's trial so freaking much, which is wild. Hey Sunny Bunny, or Hey Sunny Girl in the chat said, being cross-examined is so stressful. In a wrongful death suit for my dad, the medical provider's attorney asked me why I didn't demand to speak with my dad's doctor before he died suddenly. That lives rent-free in my brain 24/7. Horrible. It is horrible. Being cross-examined is a dehumanizing experience. It is not easy. And it's like, you can't know, like, how are you supposed to have a premonition that you need XYZ. It is not easy. And it's when I see people drop civil lawsuits, there's times when you see people saying, why did they drop the lawsuit? Why didn't they drop this lawsuit? A lot of people will drop lawsuits to not have to deal with lawyers like this. I can't believe they're still at sidebar. And the jury's just sitting there. Like, at least if they're going to be that long, let the jury go take a break. Dolesday Leche said, see, for me, even if they talked, at the end of the day, Hannah's still the armor. If she had done checks, no one would have died. And that's, the prosecution has to bring it back, but the prosecution also feels like they're in the weeds a little bit on this. I hope they bring it clear. I hope it's a clear closing. I'm not optimistic. Tinsley, good to see you. First of all, hey girl, hey. Second, I definitely feel that everyone communicated outside of Hannah to get their quote unquote story together. Something feels off with her being the witness that was on the stand at the time. The co-counsel just walked back to Hannah to tell her what's going on at sidebar. I wish she would tell us too. First time watcher, love your look great insight. Thanks. That's what I do. Glad you're here. What are the odds if an appeal, if they find guilty, if Hannah is convicted, there will be an appeal 100%. That's the odds. So this record, an appellate court is going to read this record and pull out their hair because there are objections that aren't clear. There are attorneys just doing things, but no ruling on the objections. This record is not clear at all. Hey, Hannah, good to see you. This record is not clear at all for appeal. This record's a shit show for appeal. You know, I haven't heard very much about the victim in this trial. And that is one of the things with criminal trials. You will hear it a little in bits and pieces. You'll hear it in the opening and sometimes in the closing. But there's a balance of relevance as to how much you get into the victim's life, because a lot of those considerations are for sentencing and for civil lawsuits. Criminal trials really focus on the action of the criminal trials really should focus on the action of the person on trial. So we see a lot of that. Hockey puck disc loops equals pain cakes. I don't know about that, maybe. Will we see all these witnesses at the Baldwin trial? We will see a lot of these witnesses at the Baldwin trial. Plus, the Baldwin civil attorneys, I don't know if they're watching this chat to see how people perceive the witnesses or other chats, but they should be watching the chats to see how people perceive the witnesses. The Baldwin attorneys have a tremendous advantage because this is the same prosecutor. They have a tremendous advantage getting to watch this prosecutor do this trial without having to sit in a courtroom, really. Somebody could be there, sure, but they can watch from here too to see what's going on, and they will get to see how this prosecutor asks questions. A lot of them are compound, a lot of them are leading, and really have a leg up when they go to trial themselves. I can't believe they're still at sidebar. Shocked they all had time on set without Hannah. Shocked that the guns were on set so much without Hannah being right there. Brian said, just once, I want someone in this trial to talk about stop work authority. Everyone at any workplace should have it and be empowered to use it. They've talked a bit about the fact with the expert armorer yesterday morning that Hannah was a person who had the absolute ability to say, we are not rolling with guns until this is handled. You can go shoot something else, but we are not rolling with guns until this is taken care of. So, Michaela in the chat said, my boyfriend is going through being summoned for jury duty and got the questionnaire today. He hates it, but I'm trying to reassure him it won't be so bad. It won't be so bad. Go through the process and see what happens. John said, out of kidney stone surgery. Glad to hear it. I'm trying to find questions. Almanacs. One, wasn't there video of him asking, you want me to whip it out like this? Yes, there is. That's from before lunch, and it seemed like he was joking. 2, Hero Gun. Did this movie use replicas? These were replica guns, but they were all working guns. They were replicas of older guns, but they were all working. Earlier, unloaded gun is a prop. An unloaded gun can be a prop, but the armorer is still in charge of it. They're trying to muddy that water. I don't know why they're still going. Your girl Chell said the prosecutor's glasses on off is irking me. I understand that. I imagine they are reading glasses and that she needs to look at the computer screen and then look at a person, but it might be time for bifocals. There's no shame. I wore bifocals in law school. I had to. They were great. So I could see my computer and then I could see like the bottom of the classroom and where the professor was. There's no shame in that. If Bowles has an ounce of room literacy, he will handle Joel with care on cross-examination. I don't think it was a super pointed cross. really. Question, this was point blank. Portia in the chat is asking about the distance of the shooting. They didn't get into it too much with Joel, but they were very, very close in that small church. They were, the camera and where Helena and Joel were was within like 2-3 feet. So not exactly point blank, but very close proximity. And part of that is why the 45 round did so much damage to Helena, and the closeness of them is why you see other civil lawsuits for the injuries caused by the sound of the gunshot onset in that close space, but also the reason that 45 round had the inertia to go through Helena and mostly through Joel. So they were very close, very, very close in proximity. The coroner talked some about it, about what they were looking for on Helena's clothes to see how close they were, but her clothes were so bloody, I don't think they got a lot of gunpowder or what have you off the clothes, but they weren't needing to really determine what happened. They all knew it was a gunshot. It's not like they were trying to figure it out. I truly am shocked they're still standing here because they are at 11:40 almost local time. They should probably just take the lunch break at this point and sort out whatever they're sorting out. Anyone else notice Baldwin, Hall, and Hannah all ran out of the room when everybody else ran in? I think with Hannah, she got screamed at when she came in. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. She's the one who loaded the gun. 2 people were shot. I'm not surprised when she walked in, people were like, what the fuck, and screamed at her. So I'm not surprised that she left. Hall's running out was odd to me. And then I don't know if people told Baldwin to leave or if he just ran out and gave Halls the gun. We'll hear more about that at Baldwin's trial. But other people were running in to help. Franny Fruit, I want to sit with Joel and have a cup of coffee and listen to him talk. Yeah, about movie making. Like, wild. Today is Jensen Ackles' birthday. I had no idea. I'm sure Jensen is not watching this with us. I imagine he wouldn't want to. Maybe he wants to know. I don't know. John said theory of the case equals Hannah's decision to use dummy was flawed and given live mix-up justifies the criminal charge. I think they're going to use it to show she was further reckless and negligent in doing her job. Who just walked in? Court TV is trying to tell us who just walked in or show us who just walked in, but I don't know who that is. Maybe stricter training requirements on armorers because this case was preventable. This case was preventable all the way around. And it seems like the armorer expert was like, none of this should have been done. So I don't know how the industry handles armorers. I don't know how the people who would be in the best position of power, I think, to change the rules on armorers are the insurance folks. All right, they're bringing in the next witness, it seems. The insurance folks are in the best position to say, we are not insuring your set unless your armorer has XYZ qualification. I don't know what that qualification needs to be, but it seems that after this, that is potential or has the potential to change. Oh, good, we're back on the record. But that seems to have the potential to change.
2021, how were you employed?
I worked.
Hold on, I missed the name real quick. I didn't realize we weren't on real time. Give me 3 seconds to back up to catch the name.
Whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you.
So insurance is in the best place to say we won't insure your movie, and that will make things, money will make things change. Can they revoke Sarah's immunity, the prosecution, and they won't?
Can you just move a little closer to the microphone and speak into the microphone, sir?
There we go.
Thank you. Would you state your name?
Name is Emery Chacon.
And in October
Emery,
of 2021,
Chacon.
how were you employed?
I worked the front desk at the Inn at Santa Fe.
And
He looks
during
nervous
that
AF.
same month, did you befriend Hannah Gutierrez?
I did.
And
So worked the front desk at the inn where the crew
during your
stayed?
friendship with her, did you have an opportunity to be? Well, let me back up. How did you get to know Ms. Gutierrez through your work at the hotel?
Well, I worked second shift, so I check in guests. It's my job to be polite, friendly to guests. So being polite, friendly, started small talk.
Was Ms. Gutierrez a guest at the hotel?
Yes.
This is going to have to go
Do
to what
you know
happened.
if other
after
crew
the
members
shooting.
from the set of Rust were also staying at that hotel?
There were other crew members.
And at any point in time during your friendship with Ms. Gutierrez, did you have an opportunity to be in her hotel room?
Yes.
And if you recall,
What?
approximately how many times would you have been in her hotel
What?
room?
Can't really recall. Maybe a handful of times.
Handful of times, okay.
So you're the
and,
front desk at the hotel.
When you were in her hotel room,
Was there
did
weed?
you ever take notice of any boxes of ammunition?
Yes.
Chad, I'm putting up a poll.
And I want to be clear, were you,
Just because you want to be
are you
doesn't mean you
familiar
are.
with guns and ammunition at all?
I am.
Based on your experience, were you able to determine whether the ammunition was for pistols or rifles or anything?
I saw what looked like maybe a couple of rifle rounds, maybe shotgun shells, maybe one pistol round.
And when you say that you saw the rounds, were they in boxes?
I have so many fucking questions.
There were a few that were not in boxes. They were sitting on the counter in the room.
In her room, there was just ammo everywhere?
And to the best of your recollection, were any of the rounds that were not in boxes pistol rounds?
One.
One was a pistol round. Do you recall approximately
This
when
is so weird.
you saw, and let me ask you, other than the rounds that were not in boxes, did you see boxes inside? Did you also see boxes of ammunition in the room?
Yes.
And do you know whether the ammunition that you saw was real ammunition or fake ammunition for the movie?
I don't know the physical difference between fake ammunition
She
and
never should have
real
had it
ammunition.
in her
Understood.
hotel room is the thing. It never should have been in her hotel.
Do you recall approximately when you would have noticed the ammunition in her hotel room?
The ammo should have been
it
stored on
was
set.
maybe towards an evening. In terms of like exactly what day, I can't give.
Do you know whether it was towards the beginning of her stay or the end of her stay?
Towards the beginning.
Did you see the ammunition in her room
Tinsley,
on more than one occasion?
I'm not going to speculate
No.
on
Just one occasion.
on whether they were getting down
Okay,
or not.
thank
It's
you. I'll
not
pass the
relevant.
witness.
This witness is only there because he was in her room and he saw ammo stored and it shouldn't have been. Whatever else they were doing, I'm not going to speculate on. It doesn't really matter to me. It's
Mr.
just
Chacon,
odd.
I think you said you were a hotel desk clerk.
Yes, sir.
And sir, what hotel was that?
The Inn at Santa Fe.
Were you not listening?
Okay.
It's the Inn at Santa Fe.
As part of being a desk clerk at the hotel, did you
Regularly going to
check,
people's rooms.
check Miss Gutierrez Reed in when she started her stay?
I did.
Now, you did not know her before that, right?
No.
So you just came acquainted with her from her being a patron and coming to the hotel and you checking her in to stay there.
That is correct.
Okay.
You said she at the start of her stay is when you believe you saw the ammunition. What day was that?
I can't recall.
Do you recall if that was in September of 2021, October of 2021? Do you have any idea?
Maybe mid-September,
Late September?
about.
Okay. Okay, and you were up in her room. I know that you all texted, that you had texted Miss Gutierrez Reed, is that right?
Yes.
And did you go to a movie with her one time?
Yes.
Now after that, didn't you
They
want
started hanging.
to keep texting her and have a different type of relationship with her?
Quite possibly.
That's what you wanted,
Sir,
isn't
there's
it,
nothing wrong
at
with that.
time?
Not too sure how it would have worked out, but perhaps.
Okay.
Sir, there's nothing wrong with that.
It was pretty clear from her text back that that's not what she wanted to do.
He dug
right?
her.
Yes.
They went to a movie.
Over a period
He
of
was
time,
interested.
you kept texting her, and she finally quit.
She
She just
wasn't.
quit texting. Is that fair?
Yep.
Wait, she ghosted you? Oh, he looks upset about that. This poor guy. This is so
Now,
fucking
I know
awkward.
that you said on
He's like, she seems
direct
chill.
that you can't tell the live ammunition from a blank ammunition, for example. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay. And you also probably wouldn't be able to tell a dummy round from a live round, right?
Correct.
Now, these boxes that you had mentioned, do you remember
But
what
there's
color
no
they
need to
were?
put him on blast.
I remember they were kind of a army green, hard plastic.
I feel bad for him too. He's just trying to make a connection in this crazy world. Like,
Okay, and
no
you just
harm
don't
in taking
know,
somebody to a movie
exactly what
and
was in
asking
them
if
or
they want to
what
hang out
they
more.
contained.
No.
Okay. And in
And
late September,
she
you're
had him in
aware
her
that
hotel room a couple times.
the filming had not started yet for the movie, or do you have any knowledge of that? Okay. Do you have any knowledge of when the movie started filming?
No knowledge.
Okay. Gonna have nothing further. Thank you.
Oh, they're gonna go to
Any
lunch.
redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you're excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Ma'am,
Calls Wyatt Mortenson.
there's 10 minutes to lunch, man. Wyatt Orkinson? I don't know. This dude's like, I saw what I saw. I took a girl to the movie. What are you gonna do? She seemed chill. I feel for the guy. You never know where you meet people. I'm not gonna tell personal stories. Emily, whatever you were thinking, stop it. He's embarrassed because she ghosted him and now he's ending up testifying at her trial. It's so fucking
You
weird.
swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I just went to a movie with a
Alright, thank
girl.
you. Have a
I
seat.
wanted to hook up.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Wyatt Mortenson.
Mr. Mortenson, what do you do for a living?
I'm a Wrangler and Stuntman.
Do you get to play with the
Explain
horses?
to the jury what it means to be a Wrangler.
We take care of the horses on the movie set. We give actors riding lessons, and we make sure that nothing
Sir?
bad happens to the horses
Sir?
or anybody that's around them.
The chat would like to be wrangled
Were
by
you employed as a
is
Wrangler
the
on
problem.
the set of Rust?
I was.
In your capacity as a Wrangler on the set of Rust, how frequently were you on set?
Chat?
Pretty much every day.
Chat?
Okay.
I'm just gonna say, if you all start singing "Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy," I'm not necessarily going to object to that. I understand, chat. And next time, I didn't know I needed to bring a pallet of water for you. Thirsty chat. But literal cowboy stuntman. I get, chat. I understand. I understand.
In addition to taking care of horses,
Man's just trying to do his job while also being attractive.
were you also in some of the scenes that were filmed?
I was.
And in what capacity were you in those scenes?
I would dress out and drive wagons or ride horses in the background.
He's an extra.
Some stunts.
Sir,
Okay, great.
Sir, do you know that Hannah and her police interview called Horses Weird Animals? And what are your thoughts on that? Because we have pretty strong thoughts about that.
Can you give the ladies and gentlemen of the jury an idea about your background and experience in the film industry as a Wrangler and or stuntman?
Tell us about your cowboy
Yes.
world, sir.
I just got in the industry when I turned 18, which was 4 years ago. And since then, I've been
Casually
working
dropping that
pretty
you are young.
frequently on 24 films, give or take. As a Wrangler and stunts, I've worked with numerous actors and many different people that are big in the movie
Sir,
industry.
your name is Wyatt. You're a
Mr.
little
Mortenson,
cowboy.
prior to working on
About
the
the
set
same
of
age as
Rust,
Hannah.
did you work on any other movies that had guns and armorers?
I did.
Do
Oh,
you
younger than
recall
Hannah.
approximately how many films you worked on that had guns and armors prior to Rust?
About every movie I've worked on.
Okay, every movie.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you give us an idea of how many movies that would have been prior to Rust?
Prior to Rust, maybe 5, I'd say.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity while you were on set to see Ms. Gutierrez perform her work as the set armorer?
I did.
And
You know, Sarah Zachry might have done better flirting with you, sir.
was there anything about the manner in which she performed her work that caused you concern?
Nothing directly.
Let me ask you this. Do you recall,
It's so funny because when she says, let me ask you this after 7 days of trial, it feels like in her brain she's going, that's not the answer I was looking for. Let's see if I can get to the answer I was looking for a different way. It's probably not going to work, though.
can you describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how she brought the guns and ammunition to set from
Yes,
the prop
Chad is
cart?
reining it in when he casually dropped that he's like
Just
22.
carry him by hand.
I wouldn't have guessed that
Did that seem
the gun
unusual
expert
to
was
you?
50. I wouldn't have guessed that the other gun expert was in his 80s. I wouldn't have guessed
Nothing
this dude
too
was 22.
unusual.
I get it.
No.
Mr. Mortenson, do you, hang on just one
The
second.
20-year-olds in the chat are just like,
Do you
woohoo!
recall an incident where a rifle was lost on the set?
I do.
Can you explain to us how a rifle was lost or what you recall about that?
We were doing a stunt in the middle of town, and after we were done, I was asked if I've seen a rifle anywhere on set.
Do you recall who asked you that?
I do not.
Okay. Do you know whether the rifle was found?
I don't.
Mr. Mortenson, did you ever take notice of guns and ammunition being left unattended on set?
I did.
Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you saw with regard to guns and ammunition being left unattended?
I seen guns and ammunition on a small cart that was left on the set periodically.
And when you say periodically, how frequently do you think you saw guns and ammunition left unattended on that cart?
That's concerning.
Most days that we had guns.
In your experience with armorers on movie sets, did that seem unusual to you?
Yes.
So you can
And
just like pull the mic up so you
if
don't have
you
to
recall, or if you can
lean down with your
estimate
stature.
approximately how long would the guns and ammunition be left unattended on that cart?
I can't truly recollect.
Because he was busy with the horses.
Sir, do you recall in this case having a pretrial interview where you had to show up and talk to us about your testimony?
Via Zoom, yes.
Yeah, that's right, via Zoom. Do you recall specifically what you said during that interview about approximately how long the guns and ammunition would be left unattended?
I can't remember.
Would it refresh your memory if I showed you a transcript of our conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. May I?
I'm going to get to a few questions because when we break for lunch, I am also going to need to break for lunch. I imagine court is going to break in like 4 minutes. I see that you guys are asking if it is Rob's brother. I have no idea. But she's trying to get to an answer that she very much wants. And that's not happening. Miguelina, I pushed just a little bit on that, so we will be good. Water, free water, get your free water here.
Did that refresh your memory?
Yes, it did.
Okay, can you answer my question now?
Yeah. Close to an hour or so. Yeah, sometimes more.
Do you have personal experience with firearms?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the difference between real firearms and
Rubber?
replica or fake firearms?
No. That's compound.
If
Replica's
I'm handed
different than
one, then I
fake.
can see it closely. Yes.
Replica
Do you
and fake
know
are not the
whether
same, Carrie.
Firearms that you saw regularly left unattended on the prop cart were real?
Yes, most of them seemed real.
Okay. And when you say they seemed real, how would you know that?
Just because most of the guns on the movie
Because the
set
guns
were
on the
real.
set were real.
And
Yeah.
did you see scenes that were filmed on the movie where the guns would shoot blanks?
Yes.
Do fake guns fire blanks?
No.
Ma'am,
Okay, only real guns fire blanks,
she
right?
has to tie
Okay.
together the...
And sir, did you
she has to eliminate the doubt
take
that these were
note
not real
during
guns
your,
left
your
out,
time on the set
which
of Rust?
I appreciate. But like,
Did
why
you
not
notice
just
whether
close
or
with
not
Joel? Like, call this dude earlier in the
Ms.
day.
Gutierrez's
It's odd to me.
conduct as an armor with regard to
This feels very leading.
handing firearms to actors and taking firearms away from actors when a scene was over. Do you recall taking note of that?
Yes.
Okay, not
Can
as
you
leading.
explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury
What you
what, if
noted.
anything, you noticed about the manner or how quickly Ms. Gutierrez would remove real firearms from actors when a scene was over?
It would depend on the scene and who the actors were.
Do you recall taking note that when a scene would be over, she would not
Becca, could've.
immediately collect the firearms from the actors?
Yes.
Did that stand out to you?
Yes.
Why?
Every other show I'd been on previous to that, the armor would hand the gun right before the scene and take it away right after.
And that was not Ms. Gutierrez's practice?
Not that I can recollect.
Okay. And
Okay,
sir,
great.
do you have
Moving on.
personal knowledge and experience with revolvers?
Fairly decent.
Why does it matter?
Do you recall taking note of the manner in which Ms. Gutierrez would conduct the barrel check of the revolvers?
There was a few moments that I did notice. Yes.
Okay. So.
And what did you notice?
But
and
first
what
of all, I
did you
want you
notice?
to kind of explain to the jury what your understanding is of
Can I call lunch? Can we go to lunch?
why a barrel check is done and
Can we go to
how it
lunch?
should be done.
Well, from my experience, the reason
Sure.
Your Honor, may we approach? It is noon on the dot. Let's go to lunch. Your Honor, may we approach lunch? All right, Chad, I'm going to answer a few questions if I can. Emily is hangry. No, Emily has an interview to do. So I have an interview to do. I'm surprised that the chat has not the chat. I'm surprised that the prosecution did not save Joel for last. I'm surprised that they are filling in this testimony. I don't think this witness, though I know that the chat appreciates this witness, I don't know if this witness has brought anything that we did not already know.
Can you describe specifically?
Here, hold on, let me back up. He noticed
What
on
did you
set.
notice? The way that Ms. Gutierrez.
There we go.
Did you notice anything that caught your eye about the way that Ms. Gutierrez would conduct
Like we've established this.
the barrel checks?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you notice specifically?
Can you describe specifically?
Well,
What are you asking?
Let me do this. Do you recall discussing
not
this
yet.
during
Stop.
the interview that we did with you over Zoom?
I believe so, yes.
Do you recall exactly what you said to us that day?
I think so, yeah.
Do you need to see it to have your memory refreshed at all?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
She's trying. Cat Lady 0225 in the chat said, if Hannah's verdict is not favorable, can Alec choose a plea deal after this trial? The state would have to offer him a plea deal, or he'd have to plead open to the judge. He could plead open to the judge. I don't think his attorneys are going to, because I think his attorneys are going to look at this case like chum in the water for them. Though there's not great things for Baldwin, but there is definitely room for these attorneys, for Baldwin's attorneys to work. Let's see.
10 through 21?
Maria B., I'm sorry for this experience. Maria B. said, my daughter was at Target when a shooting occurred. She was ordered to leave without belongings. A kind woman cared for her till I arrived. The police wouldn't allow us to get her car keys till they cleared the scene. And that's very common. I'm very sorry that your daughter had that experience. That's absolutely terrifying. But yeah, when they lock a scene, nobody's coming in and out.
Mr. Mortenson, did that refresh your memory?
I mean, that's
Yes,
fair.
ma'am.
Okay, can you answer my question now?
I can. So there would be moments on the set, and one that I can truly recollect was she took the gun from
And that makes sense.
Alec, and to check to see if the gun was clean, which there's a process that armors do, and
Can you tell the jury, in your experience, what that process is?
yeah, in
Ma'am,
my
he's
experience,
not the expert.
you always make sure you check if a gun is clean or how many rounds are inside the gun.
We had a
But
great
what you can do
expert.
is you open the cylinder, and
Also should've
this
gone
is
later.
speaking with single action pistols, and you take the cylinder out, and because blanks have a lot of debris that comes out with the gunpowder, you check the barrel sometimes to just see if anything is lodged in there, because that can shoot out with the gunpowder. And you open the cylinder and you can look down the barrel, and if the cylinder is open, it's impossible to be shot or anything bad happen, because
The
you can see
cylinder's open.
straight through, and you see daylight through the barrel of the gun.
And did you see Hannah
what
do
caught your eye
that?
about the way that Ms. Gutierrez did those barrel checks?
When she looked, the cylinder was closed.
And
Oh.
so in your experience,
She looked
when
at
she
a
looks and the
loaded
cylinder is closed,
Gun with the
what would
cylinder
she be
closed.
able to see?
Nothing.
Also, it'd be
I'll
dark.
pass the witness.
Lunch.
Cross-exam.
Ma'am? I hope this is short. They're trying to get this witness done and off the stand. Okay.
Mr. Mortenson, isn't it true that you can see light through that barrel just by pulling back the hammer?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of? You're not an armor, are you?
No, ma'am.
And you've never worked as an armor on any movie, have you?
No, ma'am.
In fact, in the filming of Rust, you were a Wrangler, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Your responsibility is animals, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Horses,
Yes, ma'am.
donkeys.
No.
You weren't responsible for the donkey? I thought we heard testimony about a donkey. That wasn't you, right?
Not that I can.
He's like,
recollect.
ma'am, donkeys
Okay.
are assholes.
And in
Oh, my
fact, during the
horses.
Rust filming, isn't it true that you didn't even wear a real firearm? You had a replica rubber gun, right?
The replicas and the rubber
not
guns
that
are
I
different. Can we stop
You don't
conflating the
recollect
two?
if you wore if you had a real firearm on Rust? Is that what you're saying?
I can't remember if I had even a gun belt on.
2.5 years
Okay.
ago.
At any time when you would have a gun on Rust, wasn't it a rubber one?
He
Not
doesn't
that I can
remember.
recollect.
Asked
So
and
you don't
answered.
remember you don't remember if you had a real gun
Asked
or a
and
rubber
answered.
gun on this movie set. Is
Asked
that
and
what you're
answered.
saying? It?
No, misstates
I can
testimony.
remember holding both a live gun and a rubber gun, but
On the filming of Rust.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, in your direct testimony, one of the things I thought I wrote down that I heard you say was there is nothing directly about Ms. Gutierrez's work on that set that caused you concern. Do you remember telling the jury that in direct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And when
She should
you
have just
saw
stopped
these
there.
guns on top of that cart, you weren't right over the prop cart, right? You were further away from that.
Beside it.
Were you even able to tell if these were non-functioning or functioning firearms?
Not that I could tell.
Okay, so in your have you ever seen on any of the movies you've worked on a part-time armor?
Never.
I don't know their work arrangement. Oh, nope. Back to production bad.
And in this filming on Rust, was there a time when horses ever got loose?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that that was an extremely dangerous situation?
I'll object to. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's approach.
Well, she's going to ask if he did his job.
No.
Okay.
Oh, hold on.
You need me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay. So
Did
can you
horses
answer the
get
question?
loose?
Yes.
So, horses, it is a dangerous thing to have horses on set, right?
Asked and answered.
Yes.
And you were the one responsible for wrangling those, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall a time on Rust when you had a problem getting paid on time?
Can we approach?
Objection relevance. Like, what is the relevance of any of this? I don't know why the prosecution called this witness. I just don't think they needed it. They wanted it, but I don't think they needed this witness. They clearly think they did. Grace asked, what's the range of sentencing penalties she could face? Probation to 18 months. I don't think the state has proven the tampering charge. I'm not including the tampering charge in that max. The state has brought no evidence as to that, and I don't know if they can. I don't know if the tampering charge will survive the motion to dismiss when the state closes evidence at this point. Can Hannah be called to testify in the Baldwin trial? Guy Shook, it's going to really depend on what happens in this trial. If she has testified and if she's sentenced, she could be called. If she's acquitted, she could be called. I don't know how cooperative she would be, but it's a possibility depending on what happens here. Therese said, I missed the first 5 days because of my honeymoon. Well, congratulations. Happy to watch with you now. Therese, I'm going to let you know. If you have the Lawnerd app, we've been putting up my summaries of each day of trial. They're like under 10-minute summaries over on my Quick Bits channel, where I put up our Quick Bits podcast and shorts and things like that. So if you need to catch up on like, these are the main points from each day, that's on the Emily D. Baker Quick Bits YouTube channel, and those are linked in the app, and we've been dropping those because Miguelina, my producer, has been absolutely amazing at cutting those down for you so you guys can find that. So if you have the Lawnerd app, every day that those drop, those are there for you to catch up. I hope your honeymoon was
Mortenson,
magical.
I'll re-ask the question here. So do you ever recall a time on Rust when you had a problem getting paid on time?
I can't truly recollect.
Would it refresh your memory to take a look at your pre-trial interview transcript?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay, just a sec.
I don't know if this matters at all. Okay, production didn't pay people on time. We know they're cheap. And Wedge, good to see you, said, do I think she gets involuntary manslaughter? No, it seems unlikely. In my opinion, I do think that the second charge is more likely. The second charge here is the tampering with evidence. The involuntary manslaughter has two theories. I broke that down in the last podcast on this case, but I haven't seen anything on the tampering for, unless you're talking about Sarah Zachry. Can the defense ask Seth why he got Hannah's cell info?
Did that refresh your recollection?
The
Yes,
last
ma'am.
witness, they didn't. If we're talking about Seth Kinney, it's because they work together.
Was there ever a time on Rust that you recall not being paid on time?
Yes, at the very beginning.
Okay, just a second, Your Honor.
I don't think there's anything else here. Thank you. I'm going to try to get to some questions if we can.
No further questions.
The Lawnerd app is the best. It's not spammy, keeps you right up to date. Love it. I think she... Oh, God.
Mr. Mortenson, have you ever testified in court before?
No, ma'am.
Do you have a brother named Rob? Just kidding.
I want to be clear. Did you see guns left
Not Sarah.
unattended on the prop cart
Asked and
after
answered.
shooting scenes that involved the firing of
Michelle, I
blank ammunition?
I don't know who offered the immunity.
Thank you. I don't
Nothing
have
further.
All right, this witness is excused. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Okay, we're going to take our lunch break. Please be back at 1:10. Okay, downstairs at 1:10. Please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. Thank
we
you.
will set the afternoon stream for 1:15 local time, which will be 1:15 local time, which will be, I think, 3:15 Eastern time. Miguelina, thank you. Chad, unfortunately, I have to scoot to go talk about one of the lawsuits in the Bravo sphere with ABC. I will be back for a little bit after lunch. I don't think I'll be able to roll the whole afternoon. I have a concert to go to. I want to, but I'm invested, and I need to see if they call Seth Kinney after lunch. So we're here now. Chat, we are going to put the afternoon stream up for that time. I will let you know. It's a pre-record, so I'll let you know when it airs, which actually probably will be tonight, but I will let you know in the afternoon, and I will let you know in the Lawnard app once I know. So be sure to download the Lawnard app. I'll see you for a little bit after lunch because we're rolling now, and I am invested, and I can't step away. So with all of that, chat, thank you for being here. Thank you for being Lawnards. Download the Lawnard app. I will see you in the next one.
You can stay up to date with everything I'm covering and fast notifications on our free iOS and Android app at lawnerdapp.com or search the App Store for Lawnard. You can also follow me around social media, and don't forget to check out my podcast, The Emily Show, with quick bits dropping every Monday, summarizing everything I do here on the live streams on Tuesday and Thursday for when you just have time for the quick bits. Thanks for being a Lawnard.